Now, say my name.
Heisenberg.
You're goddamn right.
George just wished us good luck. Producer George in the house. Sheesh. Yes, welcome to your very special Las Vegas edition of The Rational Male, which I rarely do here, and I'm happy to do it now because it's just there's a few bugs and things that we have to kind of work out as we go along, but I think the overall production value is much worthwhile. We're also doing a joint venture with Dollar Cost Crypto. I have with me Miguel from DCCC. And I wanted to have you on for this show because this was something that's kind of a long time coming, and I want to do more shows with you. As well as Aaron Clary, because we have such a resource of like guys here in Vegas, and it's like, what can we do? Like every time I come down here just to do Access Vegas, I meet up with you, meet up with Charlie. Aaron's here at least until the end of May, until he goes back to rap wherever he's going. Yeah, back to his place, and then we have Daverick from Black Ice is here. We had him on the show last Thursday, and of course, Mike's always here. So
great show, by the way.
This is the best venue and resource I think that we have, and then just the very fact that you and I are here in Vegas finally. Right? It's funny. I feel like we're kind of finally hitting on like all cylinders, and it's like, now what can we do with all of this? And we're heading into the summer months, so there's a lot more potential.
I mean, definitely, and stuff. I mean, there's a reason we chose Las Vegas as being like a hub right here, because it is a hub. It's a major hub. Mm-hmm. We're getting people leaving California coming here, and it's kind of
stay in California.
Yeah, stay in California, Texans, right?
Go to Texas, yes.
But but the cool thing about Las Vegas is it's like kind of known worldwide, and everyone it's a hub, and at some point everyone flies here. At some point, right?
Yeah.
So we'll end up catching. You'll catch the most randomest people, and you'll get these crazy ass interviews. I mean, even when we had Myron and Fresh out here, they were kind of originally bashing, Vegas, and they came here and they're like, Jesus, this
maybe it's not so bad.
Not so bad.
Yeah. I don't think people really understand the history of like you and I when we came out here to Vegas. For a while, about half of last year, I was really seriously giving consideration to like moving to Florida, right? Because so many people were going there. If you're going to have a podcast, you got to go either to Texas, you got to go to Nashville, or you got to go to Florida. And Florida is all Miami, South Florida. And I'd lived in Florida before, and I was like, okay, maybe I can make it work down there. And I was looking at houses in Cape Coral and Fort Myers, which is now flattened by the last hurricane that was out there. So I'm like, maybe that's a sign. Yeah. But you and I, right around the end of July, beginning of August, said, you know what, screw it, let's do it in Vegas. You're already here. I was in Reno. I'm like, let's see what we can make work. And I will tell you, man, sometimes things happen for a reason.
Right.
Because like it's been a lot easier doing this than I ever imagined it would be. Like just jumping in. I thought we would have to do everything by scratch, but now we got George here as a producer. We got this beautiful studio.
Yeah, man.
This is one of two, and they're opening it up into a larger one soon. So there's so much potential. Like when I see stuff like this, it's like a blank canvas. I'm like, what can we do?
We're even converting the green room into another studio as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
As well.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So, and I don't think people really realize that, like your involvement also with this venture, let's just say, and so Vegas is starting to become a real thing. We needed a West Coast hub, and we did it.
And we did it.
We're doing it. We're in the process of doing it,
in the most tax advantaged way possible.
Yes, exactly. And so,
but you're 100% right. It started. I think it was like after a Fresh and Fit show. I think with the Avengers Assemble show.
Oh, we
started talking about it. Gavin was there and stuff like that.
Yeah,
and then I think it was CME, the Avengers Unite, and then from there, me, you, and Waller were actually at your house, or at the vacation house in Reno.
Right. Yeah. That's another
the
thing.
jet skis.
A lot of people don't remember. Yeah. So I do. In fact, I should probably just make this announcement. In August, I usually host sort of I've been doing it for about a week.
Okay.
This year, I have booked a place on the Keys in Tahoe for a month.
Oh.
So I'm invited. I have a special guest. It's just like, I don't call it. I don't even know what to call it. I need a name for it. But like I go there, and being there for a week is great because I can bring the dogs, and we got the jet skis, and there's so much to do in Tahoe, and it's kind of a high end venue, I think, right?
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of things to do. I brought Jason Hartman out there last summer, and and Justin Wall's been there. Sterling Cooper's come out. You've been out. I'd love to get you and Cappy out there too as well. But
Cappy
I got the
would be
whole
good.
month of August. I'm actually thinking about doing a meetup of some kind up there for at least one of those weeks. So I'm going to invite. It's going to be invited guests, but then I might open it up to people who want to make the trip out, because I mean you got to fly out to Reno then drive up there. So.
Right. I mean, I just think all these funny names like the Eagles.
I'm trying to think. Yeah, I know. I'm trying to come up with like brainstorm names and stuff. I really just need to have a brainstorming session with you guys. So, anyways, as part of the potential that this studio has, it's like I can work with you, I can work with Aaron. And I was really hoping to have Aaron Clary in on this one, but he's on his way to. He's taking a trip right now. So consider today's episode like part one. Of this conversation, because I really think that this we're going to be lacking something without Cappy's influence on this, because he's the economist, he's the macroeconomist, he's the book of numbers guy, he's the menu guy, which also, by the way, is really great crossover for what we're going to talk about today. So I want to get into the popularity of a new topic, I think, and I really think it's a good crossover between what it is you do, like the macroeconomic side of things, the crypto side of things, the money side of things, with the game side of things. So when we talk about like the entirety of quote unquote the Manosphere, it's money, muscles, and game, right? So I consider you on the money side, first of all, but that doesn't mean you can't like lean over like you did last week right here in this studio, and you were on fire, man. You were like a Baptist minister throwing out spitting heat.
Holy ghosting, baby.
Yes.
There we go.
And so I was like, damn, man. And you were talking about your humble beginnings.
Yes.
And I'm like, damn, maybe that's why I get along with Miguel, because like you still have a soul.
Baptist preacher.
Morally, you haven't lost your soul quite yet. Give it another year. But you have humble upbringings. You still remember your family, and I mean you're from the Latin culture and everything as well. So, so there's that aspect to it too. But like there's also the hard work aspect of it too. And I think that's really was the germ of the idea for this show. Was there's so many people who want to jump on the bandwagon right now about the low employment numbers with men today, and we're gonna riff a little bit on an interview that Chris Williamson, my favorite punching bag, Chris Williamson. I mean that in the nicest nicest possible way. I do riff on a lot of his stuff, but it's only because I see a lot of his stuff and the people who he does interviews with, and I'm like, I wish I was right there so I could say, well, you know what, that's kind of bullshit. That's kind of let me see if but kind of thing. And I don't want to, I don't want to be that guy. But
is it mostly his take, or with the guests he brings on to like to like push whatever, not agenda, but what his viewpoint
it becomes his take. I think that's the problem. Is he won't have me on, but he'll go and have like Robert Henderson on, people who I quote constantly. He'll have on the show. So I think that being on there sort of as a foil would be probably detrimental to his brand. But in this case, it's not just Chris, though. I saw Tommy Lahren mouthing off about this about a month and a half, 2 months ago. I've seen this on, I think it was Dave Ramsey was talking about that. You know who Dave Ramsey is.
Oh, yeah.
So like guys who are in the quote unquote financial sphere, but I wouldn't even really put them in the financial sphere. No. Maybe even George Gammon would be a good guest to bring on here too and talk about this.
It's almost like pop finance almost, or something.
Yeah, that's a good name for it. Pop finance.
Yeah.
It's like whatever's the hot story and however they can spin it. And I listened when I gave you the video so you could watch it last night. And so we're going to riff on it a little bit, but that's one of probably a dozen that I was watching. Yeah. And most of them are anywhere between like 8 minutes and like 15 minutes. This one's a little bit longer than that. So it gives us a little bit more to sink our teeth into. But in every single one of these videos, they just dance around the same issue, which is and I'll just throw it out there. I mean, spoiler alert. The reason why guys don't want to get into the workforce is because they got no incentive. Why would they get into the...
Yep.
And so we've been building up to this generation of guys who are like, they want to say, oh, they're listless, they're lazy. That's why I used that, by the way, that thumbnail. Thank you very much. Yeah. Was that genius? That was a masterpiece. But I mean, it's the Cheetos guy, right? It's the stereotypical guy who lives in his mom's basement. That's the whole thing is like these guys, when they're opining about this generation of guys, that's the caricature of the guys that they have in their heads, is the guy who's just sitting on the couch, sucking down Cheetos, can't even be bothered to get up. It just like pours the Cheetos into his face kind of thing. And I just, you are in the crypto sphere. Yeah. And when I was with you at PulseCon, for example, the guys there don't seem like the guys in the thumbnail. No, they don't seem.
They're not
like
Discord
that.
mods.
No. And so one of the things that I kind of wanted to get your opinion on as well is I see this as sort of a generational thing, but it's an intersexual dynamics thing too, which no one on any video I watched wanted to say. They did not want to go there, including the guy that we're gonna riff on a little bit here today too. It's like the 800-pound gorilla in the room. It's like guys. Well, guys who are married have they go to work more. They're more incentivized to go. Like, yeah, because they got bills. They got a wife. That's why. Because they went along to get along, and they've got the wife there and everything. And if they don't, they're going to be in for a divorce, because divorce is precipitated by a guy not making as much money as his wife or his girlfriend, whatever.
And there's something towards the tail end of the video. It's just, this is spoiler alert as well. Okay, but it's one of the biggest bullshit thing I've ever heard. I have to say it right now. I mean, pretty much it was just saying that there was a study from this woman or something at the end there that it was pretty much saying that the longing to make children for men and women is more of a muscle instead of an actual like innate trait or anything like that. It's like there's a reason like people could just forget to want to have kids.
Yeah, exactly.
What are we talking about
Well,
here?
what gets me is this, and again, it just goes back to stats. So people keep looking at stats independent of other stats. If you're going to be a statistician, you have to look at stats in relation to other statistics. Right. For instance, one that I'm going to give you guys today here, and I've used this on my show before, is the stat where we look at hormonal birth control, the rise of the use in hormonal birth control, and the rise in divorce from 1965 up through the 70s, and then it declines as marriage declines as well. So I'm sick to fucking death of listening to these guys on Twitter talking about like, oh, Rollo's all gloom and doom, and it's divorce is actually down. I'm like, yeah, because marriage has never been at a lower rate in the history of us keeping track of marriage. Of course it's down. That's two stats. If you only look at them in isolation, one seems like good news and one seems like bad news, but they are directly correlated to one another. Right. Correlation is not causation. I got that. But sometimes there's a hell of a freaking correlation.
There's a bunch of a correlation, and then on top of that, there's a big push for UBI and things like this as well. And they're talking very negatively against UBI, but then at the same time, the powers that be are pushing UBI. Yeah, on everybody else.
Oh, we got into that too. Yeah, the UBI question on there is also something else. And by the way, I think it was. It's not in this interview. Okay. But it was in. I think it was a Dave Ramsey one, or I watched another one where they were talking about the UBI. I think it was Megyn Kelly actually had some. Oh, she was talking to Mike Rowe. It was Megyn Kelly and Mike Rowe.
Oh my God.
And they were talking, and towards the end of the interview. Now I'm not going to show that one, obviously, because we'll get chapped for that. But the idea that UBI is or the possibility of UBI is something that is, and universal basic income for people that don't know what UBI is it will be just a force multiplier for these guys who just don't have they have no motivation. They have no reason to get it. They have no purpose. And I'm also sick to death of people conflating meaning with purpose. So we're going to talk about that a little bit today. Thank you very much, Jordan Peterson.
Right. I mean, I guess we could play the video and stuff in terms of like, because he did say he was going into a lot of that meaning. It doesn't matter the amount of wealth. It's more like people have always worked hard, no matter what. People have always had purposes, no matter how poor they've been. But it's a lot of it has to do with society and sort of these carrot and sticks we have, and there isn't that many carrots anymore for men and stuff. And this is why we're getting kind of more of like we're getting a lot of doomers or black pillars and stuff. Yeah, and people who are giving up. And I think I was talking to you this before even the show started about that were like you and a lot of the guys in the red pill and stuff like that are kind of like these outliers creating outliers.
Yeah. So and that's a good pushback too, because it's something that we sort of have to like to put ourselves into perspective, because it's like, what part do we play in all of this as well?
Right.
So especially as teachers. And I brought this up on Rule Zero several. By the way, you can be an honorary member of Rule Zero as far as
I will join at
concerned.
some point. Yeah, I'll hop on there at some point.
But talking with the guys in Rule Zero, it's right now influencers are the teachers of today, for better or worse. Okay, I'm not saying it's a good thing or a bad thing. Probably more of a bad thing than the good thing.
Right.
But it is what it is. So when we tell, one of the reasons I wanted Cappy here, just to sort of like give us sort of a primer to all this, is even Aaron Clarey, in his book Worthless, which is the very first book that I kind of was introduced to, it was about the rise in men and women, because this is like back like 10, 12 years ago, maybe even 15 now that I think about it. It was the rise in worthless degrees and how colleges became sort of diploma mills. Yeah. And it was like you have this, the secret to success is to get a diploma. It is to get that degree. And I think what's fun, I just read about this.
Shout out to DeBry.
Yeah, Phoenix University. A Full Sail University.
Oh my God.
Which is a good place. I was listening to I was reading, somebody sent me, they knew I was going to do this topic, because we set this out there in advance. And somebody sent me this article about this new trend, or this new rise in Indian men and women getting multiple degrees, because they figure if one's not going to work, then they got two more sort of in the kitty right there in case they, in the pocket. And I'm like, well, if you got one useless degree, what's three more? Like whatever, where are you going to, direct yourself? But it's not so much the degrees, it's the idea that if you have them in the first place, it's going to you're going to have a better way. You're going to be more marketable, or more hireable, I guess, as an employee.
And this is what we teach people in the crypto space, is that you have to be very counterintuitive to make money. So when everyone is talking about it, that's not when you get in. You get in when no one's talking about it, right? Yeah. So when these degrees were very, very valuable, 50s, 60s, 70s, I would say up to like early 90s. Even early 90s and stuff, they're very valuable, because it was more of an IQ test, and most people, because there was a lot more lower to entry, like barriers to entry jobs where people could start their career and then actually grow into a very high paying job. You really didn't need college. But because there were so few college graduates at the time, when you had a college degree, even in English, just an English degree, you were like, wow, this guy's, he finished 4 years of college. He's smart. He's got at least a bachelor's, and that would put you in a position of like, wow.
That's what Mike Rowe was saying when he was doing his interview with Megyn Kelly. Mike
Rowe's a smart guy, man.
He's a smart guy. He's kind of like salt of the earth smart. Yes, he's wise. Yes. Let's just say he's wise.
Man. He's a wise man.
He's definitely wise. And I know that he's got a podcast now. Some people, love him or hate him. When he was talking to Megyn Kelly, he made a lot of sense. Yeah. But at least in analyzing the problem, the only thing he wouldn't talk about is what I'm going to talk about today, which is the 800-pound gorilla in the room that none of these talking heads wants to address.
Well, he's got that contract with Disney.
Discovery. Oh yeah, well,
you got to be careful.
And it was on Fox News or whatever Megyn Kelly's news thing is now.
But now, because these degrees have become like degree mills, basically, they're not. They're dime a dozen. I've actually heard a lot of people say, like, I'd rather hire someone with just a high school diploma than someone with an actual degree. Now, obviously, I'm not talking about an engineer or a doctor or a lawyer or something specific, but most degrees are bullshit, basically. And I figured that out pretty early on. But I mean, there was a ton of social programming where I felt for a long time. I said this on my stream the other day. Like I felt for like 2-3 years, but until I was about 22 years old, I felt like a kind of a failure, because this this is in the immigrant community and stuff. You don't get a degree, you wasted
the American dream, right?
Yeah, the American dream. You wasted your parents' effort and stuff. You are a failure. You're going to be a ditch digger your whole life.
All the sacrifices mom and dad made to get here, and now you're like throwing it away.
And stuff now.
And that's like a sort of a spit in their face, right? I mean, at least that's the narrative.
The American dream narrative of it. And stuff.
Yeah. So I was watching the Mike Rowe Megyn Kelly thing, and they were talking about this listless, lazy. Yeah. And they never talk about. It's always the men, right? It's always dudes. It's not guys. It's like women are like completely. I mean, not completely, but like maybe 10% of the conversation is the ladies, and then it's all about these lazy guys sitting on the couch, eating Cheetos, living in mom's basement, jerking off to porn, ordering Uber Eats, and then of course, I'm glad they addressed this part of it anyways, which is the idea that these guys are also sedating themselves with pornography and weed and prescription drugs as well. And statistically speaking, they quote those statistics. They don't quote other statistics, but they'll quote that statistic, which is true. And then they'll quote, if you go and you take those stats and you compare them, say, to suicide stats, which we just talked about on Rule Zero last Saturday. If you didn't see that one, it's kind of serious stuff. It's like heavy stuff. I think it was fun. We can go from Access Vegas and have the back of this red meat show, and then like literally 2 days later, we're talking about male suicide. So that's the beauty.
And one thing I shouldn't say this, but the one reason I do like these suicide rates in terms of like the reporting on it is because I think they're very real numbers compared to a lot of other numbers.
Unignorable.
It's unignorable, and it's great headlines. So they like saying the real number with it. There's no political reason not to say like, why are these people killing themselves, right? So the number, I feel like the numbers are very real, and it's probably we could probably look at the suicide rates and we can make some sort of a multiple, and that can actually tell us listless people. Yeah,
I've been again doing the sort of the background for this show, looking at the idea of like STEM degrees. Versus like useless degrees versus going to trade school and that kind of stuff. Of course, that's what Mike Rowe's talking about. But I think the main thing that really kind of sets off the TradCon set is that they can drive down the street and they can see all these help wanted. And it's like, yeah, but they're for delivery driver at Domino's, right? They're low wage, low.
Rolo,
they're there.
How dare you
demean
demean these people and stuff? This is kind of to the larger issue of the whole social media thing we were talking about earlier. Was that I guess just to start this off, right? I mean, like the video kind of starts off eventually saying that like not the birth rate, but basically listless men have been increasing since the 1950s, right after World War II. Sort of like at a very tiny rate, and then it's dramatically increased in the 60s, 70s, and just kept going like a hockey stick, right? And I think it largely has to do with three things, right? Popularization of the TV, TV first, the pill, internet, and then from there
we're gonna come back to the pill quite a bit.
We're gonna come, the pill's a lot, and I didn't know. I thought the pill came out in the 60s, but. Apparently the 50s.
It came out in the 50s, but it wasn't popularized and it wasn't actually put into like sort of mass production. It wasn't the pill until like about 1965-ish, like the mid 60s.
Planned Parenthood sort of thing.
Well, yeah, I mean that followed in the wake of it. But like you have to, and again, it's something I've done quite a bit of research on is hormonal birth, HBC, hormonal birth control. And what happened in the wake of that. And as people know, if you watch my show, I've been doing a series. I've been working up. I'm this close to actually making it a book, but I've been writing quite a bit about the year 1971.
Gotcha.
And there's actually a few Twitter accounts that I follow, like what the fuck happened in 1971, right? Well, I can tell you what happened in 1971 because it's smack dab in the middle of a decade that had the most social unrest and social upheaval worldwide, by the way, and not just in the United States, primarily in Western state or Western countries. But we'll follow that. We'll follow the tracks. It's like you say, follow the money, follow the HBC, and you look at the sexual revolution that came right in the wake of that. You look at how sexual mores, morals and stuff were loosened and more unrestricted and more unfettered, let's just say, as a result of the fact that women were confident that they didn't have to worry about getting pregnant if they had sex with the right guy or the wrong guy.
Or the wrong guy. Or the wrong guy for the right reason.
Yeah, exactly. I'm looking. That
is crazy. You said the 70s too, because that's around the time as well when the U.S. went off the gold standard.
Right.
The dollar started inflating.
We can get into that too if you want. So I'll just give you the brief, because I have stats and everything here too, but like just briefly, if you go and you look at what happened in the decade between the 10-year period between 1965 and 1975. Okay, so 1965 really is when HBC starts becoming a thing.
Yeah,
and then you got mini skirts, and you got the free love generation, you got Woodstock, and you got what we would stereotypically call the boomers, right? And they were. I saw Rob Henderson had put something on Twitter not too long ago about how that in the wake of hormonal birth control or the sexual revolution, it was really about the cultural shift, or it was about like the baby boomers like flipping the bird to the greatest generation, to their parents who were actually fought World War II, right? And I think that's a mistake to just lay it out at the feet of just sort of this intergenerational kind of like anxiety or conflict, because I don't really think it's just that. I think it's primarily because we get one invention change the world. Yeah. And so it unilaterally put human reproduction in the control of women, or more or less, and now much more, but like back then. And I don't think they really realized what they were doing. They just want to get off, man. We want to have sex without having to worry about pregnancy. That never in human history did we have to really worry about that, at least on that scale. Right. Okay. I know people will say, well, there was contraception before that, and Cleopatra used, I don't know, some kind of special herbal blend of tea, and exactly. Hemlock will kill anything. Yeah, whatever.
I love all those old reports of all those teas and plants that used to cause abortions. But the Romans ended up, I forgot the name of the plant, but basically they drove that plant to extinction
as a result of trying,
to use it.
Yeah, to use it as a form of contraception. Yeah, right. And then you got to remember, like even like latex condoms weren't even available until I would say the 40s. Yeah, certainly during World War II, I think is when they had them, but I'm not really sure.
And only like pretty, not rich, I wouldn't say rich men, but pretty well-off men could maybe use like goat intestine as like a condom and stuff. It's just crazy.
Let's just say HBC changed the game.
Correct.
Okay. So if you look at 1965 to 1975, that's just the from my wheelhouse, like the intersexual dynamics. That's a game changer. It's also a society changer. So what happened in 1968? That's when the no-fault divorce was passed in California, courtesy of Ronald Reagan. Thank you, Governor Ronald Reagan at that time,
and his astrologist,
and his astrologist. Yeah. Yes, don't worry. Gary the Numbers guy is going to be sitting right over here in just a week's time. Just settle down, Francis. So 1968, the first instance of no-fault divorce.
Right.
Why was it then? Why not before? Why not after? I can tell you exactly why. But do you know why? Do you know why it was in 1968?
Please let me know.
Because the rise in divorces that happened in the wake of the pill created such a glut of divorces that they had to find some more efficient way to process divorces in the state of California at that time. So if you look, and I'll show you the stats here in just a second. Can you, actually, let me just show you this one real quick. This is a real easy one.
And these divorces were primarily only in the boomer generation, and basically
grab that.
Not the greatest generation stuff. Because
no, this is boomer generation. I'm gonna show you. This is actually a really good here. If you can throw that up for me. There you go. Okay, so this is the divorce rate. Sorry for the clarity here. This is the divorce rate and oral contraception use. Remember what I told you about how we had to look at variables. We have to look at two data points to sort of make a correlation. If you're looking at things in isolation, then you can make up any story you want to. But here we have 1960 through, let's say, 2010 here. If you look right around 1965, that's where the spike in divorce rates starts taking off. If you look at women using the pill right around 1960, which is, still maybe like 4 or 5 years prior to the divorce rate spiking. Right around 1968, right there, you'll see where the red line goes up. So, and you're looking at the amount of divorces per contrasted, let's just say, with the divorce rate. Correlation is not causation, but that's one hell of a freaking correlation right there.
And they don't view this chart ever.
No, they never. Of course not. Because they're only interested in what's what's popular and what's going off on what they want to talk about.
Do you think it's largely because it would bring some negative publicity on the pill?
It's unflattering to women's nature, because what happens is in the wake of the sexual revolution, what did we get? We got this sort of the loosening of sexual morality and stuff. Then you get Playboy, and then you get Penthouse, and then you get Hustler, and then you get porn movies in the 70s, the Bow Chicka Bow Bow ones. Yeah, right?
Ron Jeremy.
Yeah, and you had to go play. I mean, it was seedy, and you had to make an effort to actually go do that. Now you don't have to make that effort anymore here in the 21st century. But people want to get off.
I mean, what was it? There's a quote I literally read this morning and stuff. He's like, you used to have to go out of the house to cheat. Now you can do it on your phone on the couch next to your spouse.
Yeah, exactly. More or less. Or the virtual experience of it. You used to have to go to You used to have to go to a theater to see Deep Throat, right? Maryland Chambers or whatever the hell, you know.
The whole Peewee Herman way.
Exactly. The whole Peewee Herman way. Thank you for bringing that, man. Now that's in my head.
I contribute to the show greatly, you guys. I promise.
So that's 1968.
Okay.
So right around 1968, you see the glut of divorces that happen. Well, it makes sense that it would be better and easier if we could just process those that much faster.
Right.
Oh, what happened in 1971? Come on, financial guy.
All right. Well, basically, we started getting gold reserves getting rugged by other countries, mostly led by France and the UK. They started figuring out that we did these guys aren't holding as much gold as they're saying it is. So let's start asking for our gold. So they stopped. This started the process of the United States not allowing foreign governments and countries and corporations getting gold for their dollars, basically.
Right.
Yes.
Right. So we went off the gold standard in 1971. Okay.
Yeah.
And what effect did that have on the economy?
Very, very terribly. We caused hyperinflation in the hyperinflation, not just for us, but the entire planet. On top of that, then from there we essentially had to barter deals with Saudi Arabia to peg our dollar to the petrol oil dollar and stuff like that, and then start going into tons of wars in the Middle East from there.
And then, so would you say that was about the time that fiat currency, the dollar became a fiat currency? Because there's nothing to back it.
There's really nothing to back it. But I mean, if we're really trying to be crazy about it, I mean, there is a crazy story here. Like basically 1934, Roosevelt actually confiscated all gold or something. And really, what it really was there was these people who got very rich in the 1920s that made. So then I say the 1920, the Roaring 20s is a lot what's going on in crypto right now. Same sort of thing, brand new technology. So basically, people came out of World War I with something called victory bonds. So for the first time, Americans actually had savings. Then they ended up investing into the equities markets, and it caused this gigantic bull run in the 1920s. And what ended up happening is that some people really made a lot of money, and they started hoarding up gold. So the 1930s was probably the largest disparity of in terms of income inequality in U.S. history outside of right now. Basically, so this is also the time when you had the Duesenbergs, you had the fanciest cars on the planet and stuff during the 1930s.
Duesenbergs, yes.
And what Roosevelt did at that time is he went in and they basically, anyone who had a ton of gold, they didn't go after like me, you, or anyone normal and stuff. They went after people who were hoarding up the gold supply, because basically there was a cohort of guys who made so much.
Isn't that when they put it in Fort Knox?
Yeah, they put it in Fort Knox and stuff. And basically, they just any of their enemies or any of these people who were because there was this imagine there's a bunch of millennial dudes that made a fortune in the equities market. They're like, oh shit, this thing's over. They started buying a ton of gold and silver, and then they basically were putting strain on the banking system in the 30s. So so Roosevelt, bam, went in there, basically killed a lot of these people. There's a lot of people that got killed for their gold and stuff like that. It wasn't normal people. They confiscated that gold, put it in Fort Knox. That held us over until the 70s, and then people started, and then they stopped I think it was in 1934. They stopped allowing me and you to go into the bank and get gold. There's still ways to do it around.
Trade it. Yeah, a dollar was like a note for amount of gold, right? Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Then from there, it just basically from the 30s until the 70s, it became mostly like corporations, very large banks trading between each other and nations, and then eventually, dude, I swear, like the French don't get enough credit for being assholes. The French is really what started a big run on the run in the gold banks and stuff for the United States. Like the United States was getting into huge trouble where our gold reserves were basically depleted, and that's basically where they. Nixon took us off the gold standard. Yeah. Right there.
Yeah. 1971. Yeah. So now we have the hormonal birth control, 1965.
Yep.
Then we have no fault divorce, 1968. Now we go off the gold standard. Go ahead and throw this one up there real quick, George. And now we can look at growth in productivity and hourly compensation since 1948. Magic. Look at that. 1972, just right around that time. Look at what happens there. Productivity goes up by 246%, while compensation stays right about almost flatlined.
And I can tell you exactly why. That has largely to do with most Americans not really being in the capital class. The reason the chart didn't completely just go negative is because a lot more Americans own their homes. And since the home, like shout out to Robert Kiyosaki, your home is not either an asset or a liability, right? But if it's paid off and it's more of a utility, but basically houses really started becoming an asset class as well. So that really started rising. But business owners, stock owners and stuff like that, since these dollars are being printed out, they have nowhere to go. So they put them in equities markets, real estate. And this is why people who hold assets, crypto, real estate, stocks, doesn't matter what you're in, at least you're even Rolexes and stuff were going crazy. This is why everyone got richer during these money printing phases and stuff like that. But if you're a regular W-9 or just a 1099 guy, you're getting killed, getting fleeced.
In, I believe it was 1972, it might have been 73.
Okay.
That's when we have Roe v. Wade. And now we have the rise in divorce. We have more women coming into the workforce. I would argue that a lot of that productivity is women coming into the workforce during that time.
Doubling the labor supply.
Doubling the labor supply. And then, of course, we have Title IX, and I believe that's 1974.
Jesus Christ, the freaking 70s, man. Holy shit.
That 10-year spot, 65 to 75. So you've got so abortion is safe and legal, right? Now we've got Roe v. Wade in 1972, I believe, and then we have I forget the other one. Oh, I know. Actually, the whole thing that set me off on this, I guess I should be full disclosure here. Sometime last year, somebody was telling me about how oppressed women were, and I was like, okay. And then they're like, well, did you know that women couldn't have a bank account until 1974? They couldn't have a separate bank account. I'm like, yeah, because men were the ones who were responsible for the finances of the household right up until 1971 when we went off the gold standard. Surprise.
Magic.
Okay, so we got that. And then right around 1974, and this is what set them off, was that women weren't allowed to have credit cards. Wives or otherwise, weren't allowed to have credit cards until 1974. And boy, we've really come a long way. We fought for our rights in Congress so that the credit card companies would give women credit cards.
Trillions and trillions of debt, you guys.
How cruel and unusual punishment it was right up until 1974.
Right.
So, wow, that's very coincidental considering that now we're on a fiat currency. And we don't have to worry about that anymore. And women are coming into the workplace and they're divorcing their husbands and they're becoming the men that they wanted to marry, right?
Yeah.
And so ladies, when you throw that one at me, be prepared for me to tell you that the reason for that has nothing to do with feminism or your rights as your women's rights or whatever. It has everything to do with the insurance companies who are like, hot damn, yeah, we'll be happy to give you more credit because it's a fiat currency now.
Right.
So correct me if I'm like off on any of this stuff.
Sure.
Because the reason I'm talking about this now is because it's building up to what we're going to talk about in a video here, which is the rise of listless, lazy guys, right? We've essentially replaced a workforce of men with a workforce of women right now. We're going, how come the guys don't want to participate? Average women don't want to get with average men. Average men today don't make as much money as average women do, like on whole. Simply because more women have degrees, more women are in the workforce now, and then women have way more options right now to make a lot more money than men do.
Right.
Such as OnlyFans, such as
and all these other things, and on top of that as well, the rise of social media. Instead of a woman comparing herself to her neighbors, because that's really what it was. Like your couple neighbors and your couple friends, if they're just doing slightly better than you, like. That's all the competition really was. Now it's a global sexualized marketplace.
Right.
Now. Like it's that whole thing Andrew Tate would say and stuff like that. Like you're not going to find that village girl. She's already in Dubai already. You know, she's gotten flown out to Dubai already. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So you're not going to find that 10 out of 10 in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah. I would also argue this is that because I know what people are going to say because Myron and Fresh got into a little bit of trouble with this. They're like, well, what percentage of college co-eds do you think actually get flown out to Miami to go party with Drake on a freaking yacht somewhere, right? And of course they're saying, oh, no, 30%. I'm like, 30%? Fucking A. You're like, that's crazy, right? It's not about the number who actually get flown out. It's the number who think they could be flown out. Yeah. It's the perception. It's not the actual thing that's happening because that perception affects that local sexual marketplace at UC Arizona State, man.
but
I'm trying to think of party schools.
Right. But you're
CSUN.
but you're 100% right and stuff. It's all about perception, and it's basically why do you think women are addicted to watching the Kardashians?
Yeah, because it's a perception of a higher stat or a lifestyle that is of higher status than what they have at that moment.
I think the only negative show they've ever kind of messed up on is probably what is it called? Like it's this MTV show about like single moms and stuff. I cannot remember for the life of me remember the name.
Teen Mom or something like that.
Yeah, Teen Mom actually stopped a lot of
Teen Mom.
They believe it or not, Teen Mom was like supposedly originally they thought it was gonna be kind of a show to kind of like I really believe like to show how cool the lifestyle is, and then the lifestyle they actually saw how terrible it was to actually be a teen mom, and it actually drove teenage pregnancies
scared straight. Yeah,
right. And I think
exactly.
they learned, and I personally think they learned a lot of lessons from there. They just started filling up the TV with much more bullshit to like get it anyway. Yeah,
I'm looking at some of these other stats here on this nice. Like what happened here is increase in women in personal management from 1950 to 1995, and it's just astronomically high. Right at surprisingly at 1965. Wow.
When are we going to get more female bricklayers?
Yeah, I know. How come you guys aren't working in like raw sewage and like construction industry stuff?
I worked in landscape, construction, irrigation work and stuff for 12 years. I only saw one female-led team ever in 12 years. One. And it was a husband-woman duo based with the woman was really wearing the pants.
I got another one here. This is a good one here. Let me see if I can put this up. This is pretty easy to do. You want to talk? We were talking about fertility rates and stuff like that not too long ago. Average number of babies per woman from 1800 to today drops off a cliff when 1965.
And this right here is the scariest freaking stat on the planet because the birth rate. This is the central Ponzi of the world. Out of everything, if there's anything that could fix, if I could right now, if I was president of the United States and I could just snap my fingers and say like, even if it was out of wedlock, the birth rate went to 3. Like if the average couple or like fake couple had 3 kids, there wouldn't be a recession right now. We'd be in full-on bull market right now. Like
there'd probably be more people employed too, right?
Right, because basically, if you at least have because basically what the average couple needs to have, right? Let's just say like you and your wife, right? Or like if I get married or like right? But if like I have a partner and stuff, and we have kids and stuff, one's to replace you, one's to replace her, one's for the economy, right? And there's this whole thing against there's not enough space on the planet, there's not enough resources. Total lies. Like how long have they been telling us there's not even enough oil on the planet? There's trillions of gallons.
Peak oil, man.
Peak oil and stuff. There's only so many dinosaurs, and like we're gonna run out of oil, you guys. You want to know something crazy? What was it like? Three,
you 4 just used the whole Triceratops.
I think this was right before the whole pandemic and the shut down the country. Under Trump, we had finally with fracking, we now produce enough oil to supply the United States his own oil. So domestically, we were not buying oil anymore from Saudi Arabia for about 4 months, 4 or 5 months. I think this may have been in 2017 or 2016. Then what the Saudis did is that they IPO'd a Saudi Aramco. 1% of the company, just 1%. It ended up at the time being more valuable. I think it was like $2 trillion. Apple at the time was $1 trillion. I think Apple's $3 trillion now. But the reason that they did that was just to show, like, imagine everyone. They've been telling you they have this much oil. Then they find out that they have this.
Where'd that come from?
Trillions and trillions of barrels. And what they did there is that they crashed the price of oil to bankrupt all the frackers here in the United States because they would rather have $30, $40 barrel per oil, and they basically crushed the fracking market, and then from there under Biden and stuff like that, I'm not trying to get onto all that stuff, but there's tons of crazy stuff that there's just so much like.
Sorry, you do you go. Preach it.
It makes me so mad, dude. Like another thing too, like Trump during that time. Remember when oil went negative? The reason it went negative was mostly off of the back of a Saudi Aramco going public, then people freaking the fuck out. It crashed to zero. Trump filled up the entire strategic oil reserves all the way to full, first time in like I think 50 or 60 years, and then Biden ends up like running
falls
through
off the cliff,
runs all the way through. Basically, there's a huge amount that oil reserve. That should have dropped the price of oil in the United States for about $2 for about a year. and it dropped about 20 cents on average. So where did the rest of it go? So and then it came to find out that they were selling oil to the Chinese. They were selling oil to the fucking Chinese.
You know, not me. From your lips to God's ears. Okay, put this. Anyway, throw this one up. There's talking about demographics there. Once again, demographic decline in America. Households with children versus people living alone. Look at that. 1965 again is where that spike begins. Wow, this is freaking convenient, man. And then of course you can have a look at the progress there from 1965. People living alone. For the first time ever, there are more occupied housing units with people living alone than children under 18.
Right.
I'd also draw attention to the fact that I believe the stat still stands. It's the last I looked, anyways. 42% of children born in the United States are born out of wedlock, and that's across the board. That's not demographically. That's like everybody together. Because people always ask me, it's much higher in the black community. I mean, yeah, but I mean across the board, averaged out, it's 42%. So, just to throw that one on there, but. Those are some pretty damning statistics for just a 10-year period. That came right after the popularization of one invention. And I made this case in my fourth book in religion that hormonal birth control was a bigger, more humanity-affecting invention than the atom bomb, because nothing has had that kind of global impact. Like the atom bomb does one thing, kills a lot of people, right? You know, nuclear weapons. Hormonal birth control changed the nature of humanity, and still does so today. I would argue that the reason why we live in a gynocentric social order is primarily due to one invention, or it would have happened sooner had hormonal birth control been invented sooner. Right. It's not. So people will say this, and I just want to address the gorilla in the room again. People want to say, okay, it was the Illuminati. It was the evil cabal of, you know, smoking men in the dark room, and there you just see their silhouettes and their Svengali puppet masters and stuff like that. And it's the Rockefellers, it's the Jews, it's this, it's that, whatever. It's like, yeah, well, you can go make those cases all day long, but none of those arguments work if human nature isn't what human nature is. Right. We want to fuck. Yeah. We want porn. We want drugs. We want beer. We want
rock and roll.
Sex, drugs, and rock and roll. That's down to the base nature. That's pretty much what it is. So all of that aside, and people are going to go, Rollo doesn't know the real story behind all of this. No, just skip to the part where you tell me it's the Illuminati or Jeffrey Epstein on the island of Moloch worshipping, baby eating people. Yeah.
The owl in the forest, in the redwood forest. Right?
I work here, man. I just report the stats here.
But no, and I think you're 100% right. But it is true on this. Like men could try to change. There always is conspiracy theory. Conspiracy is just people colluding together to try to get something done. Mm-hmm. But there is times in history where you have a technology coming out that just
it's a game changer.
It's a game changer, and very few people can predict like the ramifications of it. You know, the atom bomb. You're right. The pill. Social media. I think the left. I think the technocratic left is getting reamed right now because I think a lot of people are realizing how much damage social media has done, basically. And I would love to get your take on this because I've thought about asking this for a long time. Sure. Do you think that in the 1950s this was technically like if we actually looked in real happiness? Women's happiness actually peaked in the 50s. No, I mean seriously, like they peaked in the 50s in terms of lifestyle going up, family, everything's cool. But women's perceived happiness seems to be higher after the pill because they seem like they're free, but their actual happiness is going down. So it's like perceived happiness is like this, but real happiness in their life is actually going down, whether they know it or not.
Well, okay, so I think there needs to be a distinction made between like what exactly is happiness, because it's self-reported, man. I mean, if you just got laid and you're smoking a cigar and you're having a nice brand, you're probably pretty happy, right? But I mean, you ask you then, you're probably going to say, yeah, life's great, right? But if you're just lost your job, you know, maybe your happiness level is not quite what you would be otherwise. Right. I think happiness as a metric is really kind of a very loose and almost stupid science right now. Because what you're really doing is you're assuming that human happiness or contentment is something that's sustainable, and it's not. So it's always in flux. It's always variable. From an evolutionary psychology perspective, happiness is really just an emotion.
Right.
So you're at your happiest when you're doing what makes you happy. It's not a place. It's not a destination. It's not a.
It's peace.
It's not. Yeah. It's not your new degree. It's not your new job. It's not your new car. It's not anything that could be like. It doesn't have to be material, because people say, "Oh, material won't make you happy." Okay, that's I got it. But there's other things where you think will make you happy. I'll get married and I'll be happy. I'll have a master's degree and I'll be happy, right? No.
Yeah.
It's not a place.
Yeah, I just got triggered by one thing you said. It's just like I hate when people say that like money doesn't bring you happiness and all this stuff.
But
or
it
like
buys things that can make me happy.
Right, and you're right. They're like, because the highs never last. They never do.
How about this?
Okay.
Earning money, the process of getting money, can make you happy. Going and doing new projects can make you happy, because that's when you look at what is the psychological nature of happiness or depression, for that matter.
Right.
Anything that's an emotion is meant to be a motivator, an impulse for you to get from one state to another.
Right.
If you are happy in doing something, like usually it's like finding food and reproduction. Those are really the base things, right? So if something is making you something is intrinsically rewarding to you, it's not the end result, it's the process of getting to the end result that will make you happy. So when people say, well, for instance, I love playing music. I don't make any kind of money off of it, but the process of making music is what makes me happy. Yeah. And it's great to have songs on Spotify, go get it, Trial of Ascension. But like the process of making that stuff and the creative act, that's very satisfying and very contentment generating for me in the process. But then once I've got the latest 4-song EP, and that's done, then I'm like, okay, what's next? What can I do that's next? And so discontent is actually, I think, a fundamental part of human nature. And it's a good thing to be discontent. It's just you have to be creatively so instead of destructively so. So when we talk about happiness and say, well, women are unhappy today, they report being unhappy. Women complain about everything. What are you talking about, man? I can't find a man. I can't find a good job. I can't, the buses were late this morning, whatever the fuck it is. And it's because I think women are always looking for long-term security. And that long-term security is something that men don't have the same relationship with that women do, because women are the vulnerable sex. They want to know that they're protected, provided for, they got the food, they want to know where the food's coming from, the bills are going to get paid, the lights are going to stay on, and the baby's going to be okay from spider snakes and saber-toothed tigers, right? So that need for security might be wrapped up in their estimate of what makes them happy or what would be content, but they're never going to be that way. And guys, I think, have a different approach to that, because we're like, nobody gives us shit. And where there is no security for a guy, you create your own security.
Sperm is cheap.
Exactly.
Sperm is cheap.
And so I think men have a different relationship with long-term security than women do. And so if women conflate that security need with happiness, then I would agree with you, yes.
Yeah. It's kind of like the whole thing. I mean, I guess what, like, you know how we've kind of lost these kind of these rite of passages, right, for men, right? But for women, the ultimate rite of passage is to get pregnant and have a baby. I think it's just this is why we have so many, like, I almost said old lesbians, but it's just a lot of these like really like kind of far left, far right, like feminists, if there's such a thing, that don't have kids at all, that later on they regret that and not having a partner and stuff. And I think that's really what because there's these life goals that you hit, like it's sort of like for a guy, right? It's like, I want to make $1 million and stuff like this, or I want to hit these sort of goals. I want to have a family and stuff. And once you get them, of course, but I know tons of dads are complaining, like, God damn, my kids are driving me fucking crazy. Oh my God. But you tell them, would you live your life without your kids? Absolutely not. I love my family. And it's that whole thing where, like, you're like, I think it's more about hitting these goals, and then you have these moments of content, like, yes. Yeah. But it's never like
the highs are like so sparse, but they're just enough of a reward to keep you doing it.
The juice is worth the squeeze, right? And
in that moment,
in that moment,
in that moment, it is.
But life, life is shit. And I've said this to my students all the time. And this is something like me and Charlie said that was very unpopular during the bull market. Don't quit your day job. A lot of people started making tons of money on crypto and started quitting their jobs. And we told people, don't do it. Just really make sure you got the nut. You really got the money in your hand before you end up making a big change in your life. And a lot of people didn't quit their jobs and like save themselves. We know people that just completely uprooted their
Keep your skills up.
Keep your skills up and stuff. Now some of these guys are like in the opportunity in these next 2 years where they can do anything they want now.
Yeah. Hey, George, can you fly on that one super chat right there? It's adventurous. Brada.
Sure.
I can just read it off here right quick. It says, isn't America's negative birth rate neutralized by immigration? Approximate millions people a year documented. Yeah, that is true. And by the way, just so you know, I'm not ignoring the fact that fertility rates have been below replacement really since like the mid 90s at this. I was surprised. I thought it might have been like the 2000s, but it's actually been the mid 90s.
I got some stats for you. Stats for you there too. They peaked 3 times. They peaked 3 times. Yeah, you're right. Normally, they went below replacement for a while. They peaked during certain times when the economy is doing very well. So 99, 2006.
Whenever the economy's doing well, people have babies.
They have babies because everyone's euphoric as hell. Woo! And it's funny as hell because literally, you can literally tell the top of a bull market.
Get on this.
I've actually thought about like charting this. It's anytime I see a spike in the birth rate temporarily or something, I'm like, oh my god, we're in the top of the market because it correlates so well if you look at you're right, but basically we would have to the America can not safely, but more or less, we need about 3 million. We need to have 3 million people a year in terms of basically 1% of the population could enter the United States in immigration, and that will that's one of the reasons why the United States' birth rate isn't complete collapse like every other nation, because the United States is the one thing that we do so well, which is really bad at the same time, is that we're the best country on the planet when it comes to assimilating immigrants. Yeah, every other country in the world is horrible at it. Now, I mean, I'm not talking about city-states like Dubai and stuff like that. That's different. And even Dubai itself is trying to do full campaigns right now to get people to move to a different city in the country. And they're failing at it. And they're failing at it right now. Like, look that up and stuff. People don't really talk about that right now. But
I'm gonna just read this real quick before we get into the video itself. We got to get into this proper. So this is from a thread I've been following in the 1971 sort of category here. It says it might have been women's first idea at first, but once government realized that by normalizing women leaving the home to work the same hours as men, it can double its revenue, and businesses realized it does not have to raise wages. Of course, that would account for the productivity versus the real wages being realized right there. It stopped being about women's empowerment at that point, which is something I would also agree. And again, all of this sort of is a preamble. It's like a primer for getting to where we're at right now with these guys sitting at home and not doing jack shit. Okay, because there's no incentive for them to do so. Right. So here we go. This is about money. This is about business and government extracting the most they can from the populace. So tell me if you agree or disagree with any of this. Okay. So here we are. Women are entrenched in business. According to Forbes, 86% would rather stay at home. Most resent their partners for not being able to make that happen. There you go, right there for the happiness thing. Wages have not risen since women entered the workforce, meaning we now require a dual income to support a family. What a tragedy we have which means we outsource the raising of our children to a black market of immigrant labor. Yeah. And I would also argue, and I know that I've seen some I think it was Mark Savo and Nikki, they interviewed some chick who was like a teacher, and she was like, I'm going to teach these kids to be like trans and gay, and I'm gay, and I'm going to teach them to be gay kind of thing. So that's, if you want to talk about black market, if it's not immigrants, it's also that element as well.
I mean, I've always found it funny. Like, I think when we're doing the, you weren't here for that show. We did the show here with Fresh and Fit here in Vegas and stuff. I don't think were you?
No, I wasn't in for the one with Sterling, or no, with Justin and everybody.
They did say one thing that I just I bit my tongue on. I should have said something, but I don't think they meant it this way. But basically, they kind of said they kind of were going down this whole thing that the immigrants were the ones bringing all these guns and all this violence and stuff like that. Or no, they were saying they were stealing jobs and all this other stuff, right? It's been a minute since I've read the video or I've seen the video, but basically what's going on is a lot of these immigrants are just taking the very low end, those bare minimum, those minimum wage jobs. If you actually look at it, even teenage kids don't want to take these minimum wage jobs. Like a lot of like even I think Chick-fil-A is asking like, oh, we'll take 14-year-old kids and stuff and train them up and stuff like that. Because I mean, remember back in the day, what would kids want to be? An astronaut, a firefighter, a
high
police
status,
officer.
fun, like exciting,
high status.
Yes.
Why like now it's influencer.
High paying, yeah.
Now it's influencer.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, you're exactly right. It's being an influencer. Being an influencer is like the new rock star.
Yes.
And a famous one anyway. So to be good at it now,
right?
Yeah, it used to be something that you could just jump into. Like I still don't to this day. I don't understand why people would watch like Ethan Klein and H3H3. No. I don't understand why Mr. Beast is like popular at all. But it's because they got in at the ground level. That's why.
Well, with H3H3, he had a very different show back in the day.
Yeah,
he changed up very. I mean, and then just kept progressively getting fatter.
Yeah, but let me finish this out. Meaning we have chosen to raise a generation of children whose real parents, the influences they spend the most time with, are the government, schools, the media, business. How convenient! It's heartbreaking that women can't see this. But I don't blame them. I blame the weak men who are locked into this. Maybe, quote unquote, maybe if I say yes to her and be nice to her, she'll touch my pee-pee. Mental model giving women everything that they want. It has the same effect as when you do it with a child. The child goes wild, eventually feels deeply unsafe in the absence of masculine leadership and boundaries. And the whole fabric of the family or society starts to erode. When are we going to wake up? Well, apparently we should be waking up right about now, because that's what TradCons are suddenly, banging the gong about. And I'm going to get to Chris Williamson's video right here. Where did I put that? I've got it in here. I think I need to drag this over here. There we go. Okay. All right. So who he's interviewing in this video is Nicholas Erbstadt, and I believe he's an economist of some sort. And so he's been making the rounds recently. He was on Megyn Kelly as well. He's with Chris Williamson here. Chris is a little bit late to the party. Everybody's sort of had their way with this guy already. But I think it's interesting that we're still having this conversation. And I remember having this conversation on other shows and other podcasts as early as like 2016. Yeah. And so I don't think that the trend is anything new. I think it's just more distressing right now because, of course, we're going to go into an election cycle. Right. But it's also... where are the men? How come they're not out there? When I started blogging in 2011, there was an article that was on. It was on the Atlantic. It was one of the earliest essays I wrote about, and it was Hannah Rosen talking about the end of men, and it was predicting exactly where we're at right now, because men started exiting in the workforce. I think it was, I forget who it was, Dr. Helen something or other, I can't remember, but she has a book called Men on Strike. Right. And I took issue with that and go, they're not on strike. They're not organizing. They're just doing what is pragmatically within their best interests, which is not get married and not do anything more than they really need to do beyond getting off the couch and doing whatever. And so now we have like Mike Rowe driving down the street going, look at all these jobs that are out here. How come you lazy ass guys don't man up and take these jobs, right? Well, what's their incentive? Why? It's not get up and go do it. How come you're not there? Well, clearly it must be because you're lazy guys. No, what's their motivation? What's their incentive?
And he's made, and this guy ended up making a really big distinction between like immigrant mentality versus just if you're born here, right? And then they're being like, if you're born here, college degree or not, they're still having the same amount of people just being on the couch, basically. Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, at least with the immigrant mentality, I mean, when you come here, I mean, you're kind of like you're lazy. I mean, like the way I was brought up, you're a lazy sack of shit if you're not working. Right. Yeah. I mean, and so that's why I work like a crazy maniac.
I tell you, what's funny is because I was pretty much a lazy kid for a long time until but my dad was like, I was raised by a single father. Just throwing that out there. But I can remember it would be like a Saturday morning, and it would be like 6 or 7 a.m. And I was used to getting up pretty early because I had to get my own ass to school and take care of myself. I was a Gen X, so we had to do those things. But I can remember being in like on a Saturday morning, I'm like, I don't have to get up. I can sleep all day if I want to, blah, blah, blah. And my dad would seriously get up at like 6 or 7 a.m. and he'd be like on the door, my door, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, what? And I'm like, you're like, shit, what the hell? And he's like, get up. I'm like, what? What do I have to do? Like, is a house on fire? Right?
On the day off,
he's like, no, get up and do something productive. What? anything, right? Just get up and go. Like that. It was not so much there was a purpose to it. It was just like get up and do something because he couldn't have bought. My dad was more of like a Delta male from an older generation, right? He would not the boomer generation, but not quite the greatest generation.
Right,
whatever that invisible there's an invisible
in between. The in between.
But he was raised by parents who were like, you get up and you go do something, whatever that is. I don't give a rat's ass what it is, as long as you're going and doing that. And I don't think he was necessarily trying to instill that in his children so much as it bugged the shit out of him that we weren't getting up and doing what we should be doing in the 80s.
But that's how kids learn. There's this whole point there's a lot of parents that tell their kids, do what I say, but not what I do.
Yeah.
Right. But he was already up. Right. So you're seeing, no matter what he was saying, you're seeing your dad was up and about already. So you're copying, like,
you feel bad about not being up and being as like active and like on top of your game as he is.
And I really think that's a big part of it, because your parents are yelling you about, like, go to college, do all this other stuff. But then I would see them go to work every day, working crazy hours, and then I think that's one of the reasons I kind of copy that over into what I'm doing and stuff as well. It's a crazy ass sort of thing. And then on top of that, right, you have single father households versus single mother households, and single father households. The kids do unbelievably well.
Yes. And if you don't believe me, you want statistics for that, there's a really good book on it. It's called The Boy Crisis. It's by Dr. Warren Farrell. Dr. Warren Farrell, I have my disagreements with on some things, but one thing I do not have a disagreement on is the guy is a consummate statistician. He does his homework.
That's great.
So if you want to know why men raise better children than women, just go get that book. All right, I'm going to get into this right quick here. So this is off of Chris Williamson's show. So see if I can get this.
Great phenomenon. That would be kind of like a little bit of an end game. Today, it turns out that we've got, for prime age men, for the 25 to 54s, we've got 4 times as many guys who are neither working nor looking for work as actually unemployed, as out of a job and looking for a job. So if you're only looking at the unemployment number, you're missing 4/5 of the problem. That's how I stumbled across it.
What does that turn into in terms of actual numbers?
Well, more than 7 million, I'll get really nerdy on you. More than 7 million men between the ages of 25 and 54, the prime ages for obvious reasons, who are in the civilian non-institutional population. Civilian, because we're not counting military. Non-institution, because we're not counting prisoners or people who are in mental or health facilities. In other words, people who could reasonably be expected to be in the workforce looking for a job.
What sort of men are in this group? Demographically, education, family.
Here comes the good part.
Who makes up this group?
Well, as you would guess, Chris, if there are 7 million guys, there's some of everything, right? That's a big number. But some are more represented than others. So ethnically, African Americans are overrepresented. But if we go into the persons of color formulation, Latinos and Asian Americans are underrepresented.
Hey, you're off the hook. You're off the hook.
White, non-white, almost a
Canceled.
Education's what you'd think. High school dropouts, way overrepresented. With just high school, quite overrepresented. Yeah. But surprisingly large, representation of guys with college or even college degrees. 40% of this group has at least some college, and as I recall, about a fifth or a sixth are college grads. Here's a funny one. Marital structure, family structure.
There we go.
It turns out that married guys, no matter what their ethnicity, are way less likely to be in this pool. They're way more likely to be out looking for work or having work.
Because
guys
they
who've
have
never
to
been
work
married,
harder.
way more likely to be in this pool. And it's not just the wedding ring, although that obviously is a big predictor. If you
do you think it's marriage with kids?
Under the same roof with kids, and you're a guy, you're way more likely to be looking for work. I mean, that's not surprising to me, but it's kind of like the provider effect or something.
Yeah, so let me just push this off here right quick. Put that back. There we go. So I will come back to the rest
Yeah.
of that. I think that just like laying out the problem right there is important to understand. Remember the demographic he's talking about is 18 to 54, which I'm out of now. Yay! But demographically speaking, it's guys who are at least somewhat educated enough to
Do something.
To do something. I'm wondering how much of those jobs are things that they simply don't want to have anything to do with because the juice ain't worth the squeeze.
I would say it's significant. I mean, I was actually shocked that it was that high. 40% have a college degree. 40% have a college degree. Wow.
Yeah.
And then they're basically listless and stuff like that.
Well,
and then,
okay. So here's the other thing: is like, why would they get hired? I mean, let me say this: like, say you're going to go deliver for Papa John's, right? Or say you're going to go get one of these. Because let's just be honest: the jobs are there, but are the high-paying, high-status jobs there that would make that guy marriageable to women? Are those there, or are those underrepresented in this whole entire, like, oh, here's this big job pool?
Yeah.
Well, let's parse. If you're going to parse out guys by race and ethnicity and college and 18 to 54, at least let's parse out some of the jobs too,
Right.
because that's going to be important. Also, I was watching Myron and Fresh last night, guys. Hey guys, I saw you last night, and it occurred to me, I was actually having a conversation with Icy we were just texting back and forth as this is going on. And by the way, Icy should get her fighter's card from MMA right now. I'm just saying.
Did she almost get into a fight?
She did get in a fight.
Oh, she did get into a fight.
But not on Monday. Watch out, man. She got a mean hook.
Mean right.
Yeah. But so I'm talking with her, and it occurred to me, like, remember, you know how we always say average women don't want to get with the average guy?
Correct.
Okay. So the average guy is going to have one of those jobs, right? So what's motivating? What's the impetus of that guy to go and take on any of these jobs that Tommy Lahren gets just all indignant about to go and do that in the first place? So why would you do that? Why would you not want to be an influencer? Why would you not want to go to at the very least go and if you're gonna say men don't get off their asses and do something, well, at least you can understand their position, and then also, how come they're not trying to be influencers? How come they're not trying to be, gym bros, right?
Yeah.
Like, at least if they're going to do something and they understand their state. I don't think most guys understand their state. That's why they just do nothing, right? But the whole point of it is that those jobs are probably not high status jobs to begin with.
No.
And so again, if average men aren't attractive to average women, then why would an average guy want to go get an average job?
You wouldn't. I mean, you're basically, it's underemployment in their
and
eyes.
you can't exactly. And it's this constant hustle and stuff. And what is it for? Is it for the guy, or is it for the fact that he wants to get married, he wants to get laid? Because you don't have to have a really great job to stroke off the porn. You don't have to have the same kind of resources and status that you used to at least get the vicarious. Because they're going to talk about drug addiction, and video games, and all that stuff. Well, of course, we have to cover video games because that must be the bane of our existence. But the idea was this: that this is what occurred to me, is that the women who were on Fresh and Fit last night, they were saying, okay, this is what's going to make a guy marriageable for me, or I would quit my OnlyFans if the guy had X, Y, and Z, and X, Y, and Z is making more money than they are on OnlyFans.
Yeah.
So if a woman is, and I'm not saying they're making money hand over fist, but even if she's in like one of the top, 20 percentile of women making money on there, she's probably making more money than the average guy would getting those jobs that Micro and this guy have been saying, well, how come men aren't getting up and manning up and going and getting those jobs? Well, why would they? Right. What is their motivation to go and do so? These are college graduates. 40% of them are college graduates.
And then on top of that, and I really do like Micro, I really do. Mm-hmm. But also on top of it, it's also about funnel as well. Micro is in a position where he has seen the entire job market, so he knows where all the gem jobs are. So if he's like, if I had to start over today, 18 years old, I go join this industry and make a fortune. But for most people, it's not very apparent because these are these dirty jobs he's like referring to. Mm-hmm. It's not like who grows up and hears like, I'm a toxic waste truck driver.
I work for waste management, right? Yeah. And by the way, I know a particular drummer, in fact, who is a trash truck driver, and I don't know if they're Teamster still. But that dude makes a lot of money driving a trash truck.
Right.
But he's a trash man.
I mean, it's like the classic, like a plumber. Like they used to be like, oh, you're marrying a plumber and stuff like. But plumbers make a ton of money, especially if you own the company. Oh my god, like.
But there's no sexiness to it. There's no gravy on that job, right? So, and that's a good point. Is again, the things that would make like the question is always this, and I think this is still the wrong question, but it's like what if you were with the perfect ideal guy? We've asked this on Access Vegas. If you were with the perfect ideal guy, would you give up your OnlyFans if he asked you to?
Right.
Okay. Well, of course, then they say, well, if he wouldn't be the right guy, if he asked me to do that, he'd be insecure, blah, 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 blah. Okay. So that's the out of that. The real question should be, if you found the most ideal guy, the guy who was the best, he just laid down the good D and he was really you loved him to death, he ride or die. Like he was the one. You were really invested in this guy emotionally and everything else. Would it occur to you to quit your OnlyFans? Would it occur to you to like take off your sexy pictures off of Instagram so that there's no confusion that you're out there advertising to get a better dude than the guy that you're with, who you clearly think is the ideal guy? You put that to women and they still say, I wouldn't do it, because we're talking about a generation of women who have been socialized and acculturated and conditioned to never trust men, period. And you know why? Because 1971, all the stuff that has happened since 1971 up to where we're at right now, along with all of that was a social narrative that was men are listless, they're late, same thing we're saying, we're talking shit about them right now, just like we were before. They're ridiculous, they're incompetent, or they're borderline abusers. And you don't want to be caught ass out if that guy goes and bangs his secretary or turns into an abuser or whatever else. You got to have your thing going, girl. You know, have your side hustle. And now the best side hustle a woman can get is Instagram and freaking OnlyFans. If that's the criteria, what average guy is going to get an average job that's ever going to compete even with the average income of OnlyFans?
Right.
And so that you want to know why these guys are dropping out and they don't want these jobs. That's why. It's not, oh, they're just, we're raised wrong, or it's the parents' fault, or there's no dads in the thing. No, there's no fucking incentive. It's just A plus B doesn't equal C.
Yeah, and it doesn't seem like if they work their fucking ass off to get to a point where they are making as much money as an OnlyFans girl, that the OnlyFans, I'm not saying the OnlyFans girl, but the OnlyFans, they wouldn't get that type of caliber girl at all. So it's like, they're like, why would I work to even do this shit?
Right. And then even
point?
if I did that, I would get an average girl who's below average.
Yeah.
And I would always be, you know, and then I'm on the hook, or I'm beholden to an average girl. Right?
And then he's like, I got to make that money now. Now I got to be in super shape. It's that whole thing, like Fresh and Fit says, like you have to be like top percentile in all these like Pareto principles, or all these like dominance.
To be a high value man, the prerequisites for that, the barrier to entry, like the bar is set way high today. Yeah. And especially when it's like a long-term thing. So if you wanted to get to a pre-sexual revolution ideal relationship, which is what pretty much everybody visualizes when they're talking about, oh, I want a nuclear family, right? I want a wife and a couple of kids and a golden retriever in the front yard and whatever. If you want that, to get to that, the price tag for that right now, especially if the girl who's going to fulfill that role is already working on OnlyFans, you would have to be able to not only make a good chunk of change for yourself, but you would have to make above that what she's making on OnlyFans to tear her away from that in the first place, to even entertain the idea of starting something like that, if you could find a woman who's predisposed to doing that.
Right. I mean, and then basically what you're saying there too is like, you have to make so much money, you cuck her out to the point where more or less, like you have to
you accept it, you take it on the chin. Yeah.
You got to make so much money that you basically make her irrelevant economically.
Yeah, and those guys, and that's what I think is the most ironic part of like watching these shows, because like, I was like the very first Access Vegas, and I hate to throw CJ Sparks under the bus, but I love her to death. She's a sister wife, okay? But she's one of the things she was saying, like, what is it going to take for a guy to marry you? She's like, $5 million a year. I'm like, what? And so that's the running joke is $5 million, but it's like, maybe it's not 5 million, but it's that astronomical, like, this is what it would take for me to want to be your submitting, deferential, wife. So it's easier to adopt a mentality of this. Oh, we're all equals, right? Or I don't need a man, but I want a man.
Right.
The reason why that's a popular mindset right now is because I think on some level of consciousness, men and women, like out of work men and women who are, nothing better than the best will do. I think that they have an understanding of where they are sort of economically and resource wise, what the exchange is going to be. Those guys, like the ideal of getting like the nuclear family right now is a 20th century mindset that seems like a good thing. It's romance novels, it's romantic comedies, but it's only realizable for the most elite level of people, or at least that's the perception, that it is only for elite. Marriage is only for elite people.
Yeah, it's the whole social thing and stuff like that. It's the social sexual hierarchy, right? Basically, our what we did. Shout out to Vox Day, right?
Yeah,
but
I'm glad you know his name.
Yeah, but it's this whole thing about basically our society was focused on parading and it basically encouraging the deltas, which are the backbone of the financial economy, the workers and stuff. And then what a delta, the alpha, beta, delta, which most people think beta is bad. Beta is like just basically the lackeys of the alpha, but the delta is basically the backbone of the society. These are the guys who are like
pride themselves on their work, go in for an honest day's work and honest day's pay.
And I say this on my stream quite a lot. Most guys, if I had to deal with the devil right here, pull it out of my jacket. Here we go. Sign on the dotted line. You're like whatever little girlfriends you had in high school, whatever. You sign on the dotted line. You will have one wife, but she'll love you, and you'll have a couple kids, but you're going to work your whole life to support them and stuff. Most men
sign right up,
right there.
Yep. That's the 20th century ideal.
Yeah.
Is there's this old golden era where everybody thinks we're going to go back to. We're not. When's the pendulum going to swing back? Right? It's not. There is no freaking pendulum. We only go forward. But we still have the deltas. We still have what these guys are worried about is there's not going to be enough guys to work the fields or work these jobs.
Yeah.
Because if they don't, then women can't fulfill their destiny, which is to have the babies and everything once they're done with OnlyFans in their party years, right? Those guys won't be there with a good job and a good education because they're like, fuck this, I'm out. I'm not going to deal with this stuff anymore.
That's why they're heading so hard into AI and automation and stuff like that. And stuff. No. It's like, you guys don't worry about the AI, guys. No, don't worry. Nothing's going to happen. AI is fine. It's not going to do this evil. But they're going to use it to replace a lot of people, and it's. Within the first 15 years of this, because ChatGPT was like the moment.
It became real for everybody. And now we're looking at ways that we can use ChatGPT to sort of automate the things that we would make us more effective influencers. Right. How do we use AI? Not to freaking cure cancer. How can I make a better email list? Right. How can I make a better, more effective newsletter? Right. How can I make a tweet storm that's going to generate engagement?
Thumbnails or whatever the hell it is.
We're not using ChatGPT to save the world or to benefit humanity. It's like, how can I be how can I be more
efficient?
How can I be more visible online? Right. That's what it really boils down to. And artistically, it's kind of
so I've said this with AI. We've now entered into peak imagination.
It's possible. Yeah.
So what's going to happen? Everything's going to get commoditized. So it's going to be who can use these tools the most creatively. We've actually entered a place where actually philosopher people, artists and stuff, if you're just a really smart, creative person, because very hyper logical people and stuff, which still men are just regardless of how we're still logical, but still very logical people who don't know who aren't very creative and stuff are going to get completely cucked out. Insanely.
I have this was for experimental purposes only. I have
AI art.
No, it's not. It's an app called The Riz.
The Riz? The Riz.
Okay, so what's The Riz? The Riz is, I have it on here. The Riz is this, it's an AI, it's a ChatGPT AI engine that will essentially try to run game for you online. So your online text and everything. I'm saving it for Access Vegas on next Thursday. So
only you, Rolo, would I expect that app on the phone.
Well, the reason why I said that is because when I was talking about the game-changing technologies, I was mentioning this on our end of the year show on Rule Zero, right? We make predictions for the upcoming. I said, well, people want to say, well, when's it going to end, Rolo? When's the meteor going to hit? Or when, do we need a war for things to change in society with, men and women? And I go, well, three things could happen. You could be a war, yes.
Yes.
It could be a natural disaster, or a meteor could actually hit the right. Whatever. It's got to be something that like everybody has to sort of. Suddenly we all have a purpose.
Project Blue Light aliens.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what was it? I think somebody, I forget the video it was, but like when the Germans bombed Britain in the Battle of Britain, right?
Yes,
they were dropping bombs on them.
London,
There were guys who were pretty much lazy and listless, just like they are right now, until the point where like the bombs started falling, and then so now there's fire engines and there's disaster management, and those people are killed, right? So average dudes go, you know what? I've never driven a fire truck before, and they get in, suddenly they step into that role and they just step up to the plate because they're necessary and they're needed, right? I think that could be something you could make an argument for in the case of like a war, or in case of like
shout out to Ronald Reagan with that alien shit.
The other thing is that the only other thing that would change up the game would be game-changing technology, and I was like, at the time I didn't know about AI until I watched Alex Hormozy and all that stuff. And then I'm like, that's it. That's the game-changing technology right there. What was the game-changing technology in 1965? Hormonal birth control.
Yep.
So when people ask me, they'll say like, Rollo, what do you think about like male birth control? Do you think that'll be a game changer? I'm like, yeah, but not the game changer you would think it is. I think that technologically speaking, we're probably going to have something that's more effective and more like catastrophic or catalyst than we're in 2023. How come we don't have a pill for men? Well, because either for two reasons: either they're unwilling or they're unable. And I don't think they're unable. I think they're unwilling to do so right now.
Yeah.
So, but
how dare you give men power back?
Exactly.
How dare you?
Exactly. And then again, going back to the
because I mean, you've seen the world's greatest man right now. Just got recently divorced. All his money was in his wife's and his mother's name.
Mom's name, the soccer player guy. Yes, and you can stop sending me that in my DMs. I've covered that last Sunday, and I'll cover it right now if you'd like. Yeah. The very fact well, that's good. That's actually kind of pertinent. The very fact that a guy who makes that kind of money, isn't he like one of the top paid guys?
He's pretty paid. Yeah.
I apologize. I don't follow soccer as well as I should. But I am aware of some of these guys' names. I mean, the bigger names. But the fact that I think a lot of people were either too happy or too pissed off about that. It's like that pro-revenge thing. Ha ha! She tried to get his money, and now she can't. Gotcha, bitch.
But what I'm finding is like what I think more people are waking up to all this stuff because there's more angry men on these it's
unignorable now.
Yeah, because you used to see a divorce as like, dang, he got divorced for a lot of money. That sucks. But now it's like, ha 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 ha.
Yes.
Yes. You see, you filthy females.
Yes, yeah.
He's like, you got trumped up because all the money's in her mom's name, and on top of that, he's going to have to pay him 1.5 million.
Surprise, bitch. Yeah.
Uno card.
Yeah. Reverse. Yeah.
But you're right. How crazy is that?
But that's the dopamine hit they're looking for.
But like, how crazy is that?
How rare is that?
It's really rare. Yeah. I mean, it's the same thing how you were talking about the Tinder swindler.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
it's like, whoa. And that dude's, but it's that whole thing where like the same thing where like you have these OnlyFans chicks and like they're, wait, I gotta be careful. Okay. You got these OnlyFans chicks who are, or like these porn girls who then later on like are trying to escape from their past versus like someone like, shout out to my boy Sterling.
Digital footprint,
right? He's like porn star and it's viewed he's like, oh, he's amazing because basically he is as a guy, right? It's more impressive that you're getting laid versus a woman and stuff like that.
It takes more skill.
Yeah, it takes way more skill. I mean, what do you do? Open your like.
That's why guys have respect for guys who are technically naturals, right? Even if the form of respect is disrespect. Right. If you're talking shit about a guy who's like, oh, he's a player, yeah, but you're talking about him, so you respect that guy whether you hate him or you love him. It's the very fact that you have any concern about him. That's the whole thing. Let's get to. Oh, did you have something else?
Yeah, I mean, there's the one last quote. It's so funny. It's like men have to land on their feet and women can always land on their back.
Yeah.
But I know technically, like, if you men lower their standards enough to, like, you've said this before on your shows a lot. Like, if everyone lowers their standards, everyone can get laid.
Yeah,
you lower your standards to zero. You know what I mean?
Yeah, to zero. You go slump busting, sure. Whale hunting. There's so many euphemisms.
Yeah.
I think that the idea that the average woman doesn't want to go with the average man is really the heart of this problem right here. And no one in traditional conservative media is willing to have the conversations that we're having right here, and certainly not within the red pill. certainly not in the Manosphere in general, because when we start talking about it's not a financial thing, it's not an economic thing, it's not even a generational thing in that like, oh, those kids were raised wrong, those boys don't know how to get off their ass and like my dad knock on the fucking door and go do something, right? It's not that. It's just simple pragmatism. That's all it is. It's like, God, what the juice ain't worth the squeeze. Prove to me that it is, and maybe I'll go do something. Maybe I'll want to go do something like that. Guys are non-competitive right now, and they're fat and lazy because it's easier for them to do it. So you'll hear these, and they'll talk about it here as well. You hear these guys talking about like, oh, we need to take away porn from these guys. We need to take away their computers, their tablets. We need to take away their consoles. We need to take away their weed. We need all of these things that make life easier, that are sedating men, which I don't necessarily disagree with, but at least they identify the problem. But if it's not those escapes, it will be something else. Right. It's not because there's no you can take all that shit away. It's not going to make these guys go, you know what? Well, I can't stroke off anymore. So I guess I better get myself better so I can get laid.
How do you feel about this? Right. Because this is supposed to be one of the institutions. I mean, like it's, you have government, family, religion, right? It's kind of like so these the big three institutions of humanity forever, right? I mean, how do you feel right now with like basically like Christianity and even, I would even say
they talk about this too. Yeah.
Most of these religions are not really chastising women, really, and they're not having
sinless.
They're sinless, right? So this is the whole. I wouldn't say Ruslan, but it's this whole thing where like they're like these churches have been basically invaded by women, and they're women-led churches instead of men-led. Like,
it's not just that. I mean, see, and I think that's. They're the TradCons want to just keep their heads stuck in the sand, and like the more wokesy it is, the more it's about toxic masculinity. They're just toxic; they just don't know any better, right? But when you look at, of course, I've written a whole book about this when it comes to religion, and it's the assimilation of mainstream religions by the feminine imperative or gynocentric social or whatever you want to call it. But it's not just that; it's also our political situation. It's all think about this. Think about the inroads or how our society has been changed as a result of that one decade between 1965 and 1975 with respect to teachers, and also teachers in college from preschool all the way up to postgraduate school right now. And then look at the areas where you see more women. I mean, across the board you do, but like you look in communications, you look in journalism, you look in psychology, you look in, it's just absolutely dominated by that. The only places it's not is like really hardcore STEM fields like coding and mathematics and things like that. And even those good jobs that you can get in engineering and mathematics and everything, those don't pay nearly as much as the average OnlyFans girl could possibly make, right? And even if that's not true, the guy who has a good job after going to 4 to 8 years of college to get that good STEM field job that he's got right now, his perception is, I'm never going to get a bitch like that because she makes 10 times more money than I do, and she's already got 8 years on me, making that kind of money. So why would I bother getting off my ass and doing anything all of that? What is absolutely subsistence level necessary for me to do?
So it's sort of like a guy that's like a 4.5 saying like, I'm gonna get myself to a 7, but I'm gonna end up with a fucking 5.
Yeah, and they don't, and it's not worth it to them. Yeah. They would rather pay for it. They would rather pay for pussy. The ones that do, the ones that don't are incels, or they wouldn't call them incels, right? And it's not, I don't think it's, so you've got religion, you've got academia, you've got politics, you've got the legal system too right now, which there are more women who are becoming attorneys for the first time in the United States. Well, really in the last 10 years, like you've got more women coming into the league. So how are those women as judges, as attorneys, as being important in the legal, how are they affecting society by changing the laws in that society? Again, I asked this question in book 4, what does a society by women, for women look like? Exactly where we're at right now. Exactly where men are sitting around going, why the fuck would I bother doing anything?
Survivor Series Men versus Women. You should check that out.
Yeah.
It is hilarious.
Let me, let's continue with this here.
Last but not least, the Census Bureau has something that they call nativity, which seems kind of weird to me. It sounds like a Christmas scene. It's what they mean is where you're born. Are you born overseas or native born? Foreign-born guys are way more likely to be not in this pool.
See, you're off the hook.
No matter what their ethnic background.
I'm screwed. You're not.
More likely
I'm an outlier,
than their counterparts.
Yeah. I was born here too, sir.
To me, and I'm sure it's not a surprise to you in particular, because people who come here from overseas are kind of motivated to do something here.
Yeah.
And they're,
do you think? Okay. Do you think he's not? Just a brief aside. Okay. Do you think he is like correct in that assumption?
I think more or less he is. But it's more of just like there's a shame, like because the reason you're working so hard as a person is because I know a lot of these people is because there's kind of a shame where like, oh, you're not born here unless you were born somewhere very nice. You're typically coming from like a third world country or something.
I'm wondering if people who like live in France and like the European immigration from like sub-Saharan African, where I think they would have a much different opinion than he does about this. Yeah. It's almost like, well, if you're an immigrant to the United States, that automatically sort of says, well, you're here to bust your ass and work hard, and right, because you're looking for opportunity, right? I don't think that the people in like say Germany or France or even the Netherlands
are stagnant
or whatever,
countries. These are very stagnant
I
countries.
think that they would probably have a different understanding of that.
Well, even though I don't like what the United States does is they separate people by race or somewhat,
Right.
but there still is like this not mercantile, but there's still like this. If you work hard, you get your nut basically. Versus on these other places, there's kind of a caste system.
Yeah,
that crosses doesn't matter race. It's like it's very
you're
rigid.
low-born.
Yes, low-born serf. Basically, I'm a landed Gentile.
Gentile, gentry, not Gentile. That too. I am a Gentile.
But there was
anyway. Go ahead. Overlapping different groups there. I remember hearing you say that a married African American man is less likely to be in this cohort than an unmarried white American man.
Black
Absolutely
Wall Street.
True. Absolutely true. And in effect, this little ring kind of overcomes or erases the ethnic disadvantage, if you want to call it that. And there are other things like that as well. If you
just briefly remember, we are at the lowest rate of marriage in the United States in recorded history. It is 5.1 per 1,000 right now.
Wow.
What that is by demographic, I don't know. How rare is a black man married right now, even with 5.1 per 1,000? What is the numbers for that? The thing is like when we throw this out there, it sounds like, oh, well, it's lazy white guys who are just sitting on the couch like eating Cheetos, right?
Right.
But if you don't take that in combination with other statistics, for instance, the marriage rate in general is abysmal.
Yeah.
So it's not like everybody but these white guys are just sitting around with their dick in hand and jerking off to porn and stuff like that. No, you have to look at different data sets and you have to look at different data points. And to isolate like they're doing is meant to drive a narrative towards one way.
Right. Yeah. And I will say this, I know there's tons of even Hispanics I know that are just sitting around their mom's house on the couch not working as well.
Mm-hmm.
It's
I think it's across the board.
It's across the board.
It might be different like by demographic,
right.
But again, how many white men get married versus how many black men get married in the United States per year or whatever, and how does that contribute to the low end of the marriage spectrum right there? So, black men who are married might have a higher instance of being like employed, okay, but then there's fewer of them than there are white guys who are married, and there's fewer of them than there are guys white guys are sitting on the couch.
Yeah, I mean, you have to look at it. So, like, I think African Americans are 13% of the population.
Mm-hmm.
I forgot how much white, depending on how they count white.
Yeah. So, just like populist statistically speaking, what they're saying is like this is just meant to be like, okay, we're gonna shit on white guys who are sitting around. Just
but why are they always shitting on white guys? I never understood this.
Well,
it's weird
because they're the whipping boys. It's easy to they're easy to.
Is it like just like a race thing? You think? Because it's like you can't shit on these other
It's I don't think it's a race thing so much as it's an acceptability thing. Who else can you do that? Who else would you be able to do that to? Probably not. I mean, I wouldn't do it to a Mexican, I'll tell you that right now.
You are a foreign-born guy and you're a high school dropout, and your labor force participation is going to be very close to that of a native-born college guy. I mean, so it's not just the disadvantage of the skills, right? I mean, there's something else going on.
Did you look at family structure that they came from? Were you able to break this down by single parent household that they'd grown up in?
Yeah, finally.
No, I wasn't. I mean, that's a really good question.
Of course. Now we wouldn't want to step on the toes of the little ladies, but which, by the way, 42% of babies born in the United States, born out of wedlock.
Yeah.
That's a very easily accessible stat that you could have picked up on Google in 0.07 seconds.
Wait, That is actually kind of a crazy statistic if you think about it. So it's like if basically let's just say half of the kids are born out of wedlock. So that means statistically the people who are married are having a ton of kids.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Like, dang. I mean, because you really put me onto this, like really thinking about like what percentage of the population are really in these kind of cohorts and stuff. Since there's like the marriage rate is like declined to the point that it's like almost non-existent.
You know, I love it when people like say, well, Rosa, he's all negativity and he's pessimistic and it's nihilistic and da 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 da, because the marriage rate is actually the divorce rate is not actually 50%. Just depends on, like, they want to rejigger the numbers because it's like, okay, well, in white people, what's the divorce rate? For black people, what's the divorce rate? For your people, what's the divorce? You people.
You people.
What do you mean?
What do you mean, you people?
Yes. Like, what's the divorce rate?
Right.
And so, I mean, you got to take that across the board. And then people go, well, you know, divorce is down across the board. Like, yeah, because marriage is down across the board, man. You got to be married to get divorced. Got it? I know this is a shocking information to you.
I'm sorry, baby. I don't got my green card. I can't marry you.
Yeah.
I just can't. I'm sorry.
No, coming to this
Maria,
country.
I'm sorry.
I know, coming to America.
Question, but I didn't have the information that could allow me to give you a good answer on that.
That's funny because I just showed you the information on that shit. I couldn't find it anywhere. I have to go do a little bit more background checking here.
Okay, so we have up front a rather dramatic 7 million person cohort of men in the US.
Got it. Thanks.
A large chunk of whom are not looking for work. What is the story of modern male unemployment? How do we get to the stage where this is a hidden catastrophe?
Okay. It is not a hidden catastrophe if it's been like in the news and been talked about really since 2012. So let's just say this is not new novel stuff. So I don't know how old Chris Williamson was in 2012, but he was probably in junior high school. I mean, by the looks of it. Maybe he was in high school. Who knows? But no, this has been going on for quite some time. This is not some hidden, problem.
Well, like so many things in history, it happens gradually. It doesn't come upon
Since
us
1971.
all at once like a meteor strike. After the end of the Second World War, for about 20 years, the work rates and the labor force participation rates of this group of guys we're discussing, the 25 to 54s, it's pretty close to 100%. Not 100%, but pretty close. And it wasn't going anywhere. It was bouncing around a little
45
bit.
to 65.
Until
starting in the mid 1960s.
Mid
Things
1960s.
started to change. And
when?
From, let's say, about 1965,
Shock.
good year to market by. May not be perfect, but it's pretty close. From 1965 to our conversation today, it's been basically a straight line out of the workforce of men, a flight from work, leaving work, not in labor force, whatever you'd like to call it.
What happened in 1965?
It's eerie if you
That
track
could have been the
this on
catalyst
a
for that
graph or a
change.
piece
I
of
wonder.
paper.
Interesting.
I did a first edition of a book on men without work in 2016, and I used...
So 2016 is when you did the first book of this. So would it be safe to say that this is not like some new phenomenon, Chris?
Basically since 1965.
Which means almost a straight line. I mean, it's not quite geoastronomy. It's not quite that perfect, but it's pretty close for the social sciences.
Imagine that.
And what was really shocking to me...
You know what I'd like to see is if, like that, men leaving the labor force. I would like to see how that sort of, like, if you took that data point and those graphs and you laid it over like the hormonal birth control, the divorce rate, the drop in marriage. If you take all of those, put them all together, what do those look like? I would say they look if either they're inversely proportional or they're exactly like parallel with the others. I will guarantee you.
When I came back to do an update after the pandemic last year, it's almost exactly the same line. I could have taken the cover of that book and just, found a ruler and kept the thing going. I have no explanation for that. I mean,
it's funny because I should have fucked you.
this is something that happens in the in the physical sciences. This is not
Scooby-Doo
something that happens in
mystery.
social sciences. So, I mean, it will change eventually, but I was just stunned.
Oh, it will. Oh, okay. When?
I heard
What
that
will change
since
it?
around about
Yeah.
1950, men have retreated from the labor force at around about 0.1% per month, solidly. Is
Okay.
that
They have either retreated or they've been displaced.
Yeah.
All right.
The female
Let's
AI
be
bots.
honest
Yeah.
here. Yes.
about right?
I'd have to do the numbers on paper, but it's been
Well,
it has
okay.
been absolutely relentless.
Aren't you the
And I would have started it in the mid '60s. For the 1950s, it's more or less a kind of a slightly bouncing line with no trend that I could
The
define.
pill wasn't popular.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll tell you what the trend was. There was no hormonal birth control.
So, well, economies,
This guy's like,
demographics,
I just don't understand.
unemployment. We go through peaks and troughs. We go
Sure.
through cycles, boom and bust.
Right.
How have you managed to find, explain to me the underlying dynamic that has managed to create a ruler?
Yeah, me
shape?
too. Yeah, tell me.
Yeah. All right.
What could it possibly
well,
be, doctor?
we can start by the explanations that don't work, right? And because those are always.
What about the explanations we won't talk about?
Received wisdom, right? So, the received wisdom in this area is that this is a phenomenon driven by economic and structural technological change. That we've had this extraordinary revolution since the end of the Second World War, which is true. And we've had this tremendous set of technological changes, and that's true. And we've had this big shift in demand, less demand for less skilled labor, true. Outsourcing, true. China enters the World Trade Organization, true.
Yeah,
Okay.
and
But that's,
come on,
but
give
that's
it to
the
me.
whole story.
No,
and
it's not.
even most of the story.
What
I don't
is it?
think. If it were most of the story, you couldn't get a straight line like the one I'm describing.
Yeah.
Because we have
Those are
a
cyclical.
business
Those are
cycle,
cyclical.
right? I mean,
Yep.
you've got boom and bust
Wow,
periods. and
just
you'd-
so fucking strange. I don't get it.
You'd see a big.
This guy's an edge master.
kapow when China enters the World
Eel in the
Trade
weeds.
Organization. You see a big disruption. Doesn't show up. When we have our beautiful little monsters that disrupt all our technology
That we've had for
you'd
what,
see
the last
something.
15 years?
Yeah.
So that's not happening. What else isn't happening? Well, if you take a look at men with less skills,
Say it.
they are
Bro,
not
I would
all,
just love it if he had a pack of pills in between his
commonly
fingers. He's just like
disadvantaged in
like-
the labor force. If you take a look at foreign-born guys who are high school dropouts, but
Christ.
they're married, their work rates and labor force participation rates are indistinguishable, as I mentioned, from college-born. College guys.
College-born,
but not great jobs.
On the other hand, if you take a look at a native-born guy who's never been married, it's a disaster. It's like 50% or less chance of being even in the workforce. So in this group that's supposedly homogenous, there are like 40 percentage points of difference in participation. So that part doesn't work so well either. The really biggest, I think,
what is it?
challenge to this idea
It's not the immigrants. What is it?
is the extraordinary peacetime labor shortage that we're having now.
Oh my, what?
Which at the time of our conversation, 10 or a million unfilled jobs in the United States.
Right.
So
Why?
you can't say that this
Who are gonna fill
men
these $5 an hour
without work
jobs?
thing is because there isn't any work for the men. I mean, and millions of those jobs are not for like hedge fund managers.
Yeah.
Yeah,
which you would have to be to earn the average of what an OnlyFans the girl you want to fuck is earning.
The main qualification.
I got such a great
is
story with that
showing
too.
up
Oh my god.
on time, every day, not stoned. And
Right.
And even so, employers have not been able to fill these millions and millions of extra jobs.
Right. Okay. That's good enough.
Yeah.
All right. Because we're coming up on time.
I mean, just to give you some numbers right here for some of these OnlyFans. Like, so I was in Miami with Fresh, right? And these basically we were talking to some chicks there at the bar, right? And they were pretty much telling us like how much money they were making. There was a 20-year-old girl, and then there was I would say 34-year-old woman there, right? And the 20-year-old girl was making about $600,000 a month on OnlyFans.
Wow.
$600,000 a month on OnlyFans, and her older, I would say, mentor / girlfriend at 34 was making something like $50,000 a month, telling her to not spend so much money, and like you're balling out of control because the 20-year-old version of her is covered in diamonds. I mean, she was just iced out Rolexes, diamonds, and everything like that. And then I was just sitting there, right? And both me and Fresh make a lot of money, but this is something like even Myron just said recently. Just think about like how much a guy had to struggle to get to the point where like they're making $600,000 a month. Like, how many men in the world are there that making that kind of money, and how easy it is for like a 20. Now I'm saying she is still an outlier. That still is incredible.
Yeah.
Because most girls on OnlyFans don't make any cash.
The average woman on OnlyFans makes $120 a month. But you got to remember, the top earners are earning like, what does Ayala make? She makes close to $1 million, something like that per month. So if the lowest earner is making 120 and Ayala is making $1 million. Well, then you average that out. Doesn't necessarily mean that.
And then these women, and they were one.
That's perception, though.
And they were having these talks about like why they couldn't have they weren't really in a relationship or whatever, because the 20 wasn't looking for a relationship. The 34's complaint was basically like, girl, you need to like calm down, this because you're not getting in a relationship. You're not like, because the 34 wanted a relationship, the 20 didn't give a fuck because she's peaking. Right.
I think what's happening right now, at least as far as women are concerned, is they're thrust into this situation where like they have more access and special dispensation to things like such as education. They don't have to worry about like selective services. I mean, that's a whole nother conversation. But look at we're still expect old order 20th century, actually, conventional expectations from men and women, but we're put into this socioeconomic position of having to go against what would be our conventional best interests, because why not, right? Who wouldn't do that? Like I think it was in 2020, the number one most requested was it degree, or was like when women went to college counseling to see like what they wanted to do for their lives or whatever, they wanted information on how to be better at OnlyFans. For community colleges. Yeah, I got the stats. Yeah. And so, but this is 2020 though. Yeah. So it's like we're in the middle of the pandemic, and so they're looking for something. But that's the most natural fit. They're like, well, what's my least amount of investment that I can do so that I can be a successful OnlyFans girl, so I can make more money than anybody, any of these bitches and any of the guys that are after me right now. Photography. How do I do podcasts? How do I do videography? How do I be George for a little while? I got to be an OnlyFans girl who doesn't look like George.
George, we got to get you a stable of these girls, bro. Yes. We got to start managing.
Yeah, see, you could be teaching a class to girls who want to be
I'm going to send you Tate's course on how to like manage these girls.
How do you know I don't already have it?
Yeah.
Hey, stable.
Now on Kajabi.
I've got a stable of Japanese foot pics.
Yes, exactly. But I mean, in all seriousness, though, it's like that's where we're at right now, and none of these guys get that because they're all old order thinkers. Yeah. They are trying to solve 21st century problems with 20th century solutions. Right. They think that it's got to be something fundamental. Like he doesn't even know I don't know why it's a straight line. I don't know why guys are exiting the farce. It's like
with this weird smile on his face.
But yet it strangely starts at 1965. I wonder what would happen in 1965.
What could happen? I wish I had a pack of the contraception pills right here, just twiddling between my fingers. Yeah. What could it be?
Yeah.
What?
Of course, the mystery is what sells the podcast, right? Like people want to just grind their teeth and then move on to the next topic. So.
Why are they so afraid of actually saying the real issue? Is it because they're afraid of defunding, or like what?
Well, yeah. Well, first of all, I can tell you why Chris won't, because he's afraid of losing half of his audience, according to him. I don't know why this other guy though. It could be losing tenure. I mean, it wasn't too long ago. I forget the college professor who said something to the effect that men are naturally better at like mathematics and rational, like STEM fields, and it's clearly evidenced in the choice of majors that women will choose. Yeah. Oh, they can't believe that what that guy did was he had the audacity enough to challenge a blank slate. And so what happens? He loses his tenure.
Now, I want to say right now to the chat right now, there's 850 people watching. Get the likes up, man. But it's like, don't support OF. You got the guys watching this channel aren't supporting OF.
We're not supporting it. We're explaining to you the mechanics of it. It's possible to actually describe a problem and not actually endorse the problem. I know that's really hard to wrap your heads around sometimes.
And we're not blaming you guys either, because we know you guys aren't doing that.
Okay. Irrespective of the title of this video,
H3 guys are watching OF.
Yeah,
not you guys.
Yeah, exactly. It's not. We're not. I'm not endorsing OF. I'm telling you the reason why you won't have a wife is because of OF. Yeah. I'm telling you, and not because you did anything wrong. You're probably a very great guy, you know? The problem is average women don't want to get with average guys, and average women have the perception that the average guy is not worth their time, is not even worth, they're invisible. They're absolutely invisible.
And they got this in crypto too. They're simp DAOs.
Yeah.
Simp DAOs.
And then when they do, like, maybe this is a good question for you. Like when guys come into a lot of money, say in the crypto space, that doesn't insure them against getting rolled by some chick who says, "Wow, this guy's got a lot of money. Oh, all I got, he's a mark. He's easy to make, right? He's for any Lauren Sanchez, any predatory female that comes along, it's like they see these guys, they know that they read, they smell blood in the water, right? They read the blue pill kind of narrative in them that they really want this thing. Now they can afford it. Right. You're affording the ideal of having this beautiful wife at home, a beautiful wife, a beautiful car, a beautiful house, you know?
I mean, it's all this education. I mean, because we're all more or less educated from like a young age to like, I would say 15, the same. And then it changes when you get older. But I mean, we're still being taught this conveyor belt sort of like we're going to work at the factory sort of education for most people in the United States.
We still think that that's a path to success. And for a large amount of people, it is. But the problem with that is that what amounts to success or what used to amount to success in the era where college degrees made a difference do not apply in this marketplace today. And I don't mean that like in terms of like your marketability, getting a good job. I mean in the sexual marketplace. So you got to remember that when guys go to college, they're going that, like, for the most part, will go because they want to get a better job. Yes. Right. I want to be trained. I got to have this piece of paper that says I was here for 4 years. Right. That's the barrier to entry is that 4-year degree. But it's also not so much about like, well, if I don't get this job, then I'm not going to make more money. If I get this really good high status job, then I'm going to make more money. It's also, what do I need that more money for? Right. I need that more money for a better lifestyle. I need that more money to take care of my parents. I need so I can have a dog. But no, what mostly it is I want to have a wife and kids. At least that's how it used to be in the 20th century. So the ideal of going to college is like, we need to really sort of rethink all of that. And that's why I wish Aaron Clary was here, because I think he would probably have a lot to say about that. Maybe in part 2 we'll talk about that. Right.
And then eventually we'll get him in here. We'll make him a snowbird.
A snowbird. He'll come in here. Yeah, he'll always come in and do a show. But I mean, from an economics, a macroeconomics perspective, I think that the perception that got, like, why would you go to college as a guy? Because when I was watching Mike Rowe with Megyn Kelly, he was talking about trade schools. Like, why don't you go be a welder? Why don't you be an electrician? Why don't you
those trade schools are not as those trade schools aren't even as not popular, but you don't even know where they're at. Like, I was in the trades and I couldn't even tell you where these trade schools are.
Well, Mike Rowe thought it was because we shit all over trades. Like, you're just a plumber? Right. You're just an electrician? Is that all you do? What, are you the best electrician there is? Do you have your own business? Like, you have to be an electrician plus I run my girls only flans, or I got money in crypto or whatever. You have to have if you're in STEM field or you're in like if you're in a trade, those are some pretty high fucking paying jobs depending on what they are.
Super big.
But you know what they don't do? What? They don't make as much money as Justin Waller. They don't make as much money as you. They don't make as much money as me.
And here's the third thing.
I know radiologists that don't make as much money as I do.
So what I'm telling people, so this is now the new trend, is that people want to learn about these trades. So now, if you actually do know your trade, then document it. I know I go on YouTube all the time and I see dudes just basically cleaning yards for free on YouTube, and making a ton of money doing it. And it's all basically right now. We're in open fields right now. Basically, if you are in the trades now, I know not all of you want to go on social media, but if you ever did want to document yourself doing the social media stuff, you can become the guy in this thing. That is still available because it's not sexy, but there's a huge financial lane there open for you guys if you guys are willing to do that. And then this is the other thing too, why they put, like, this is one of the biggest things that just blew my mind away when I learned about this. So me growing up, right? We all grew up with the American Pie movies, right? Like, why did we want to go to college? Because like deep down, it's like, oh yeah, I want to get a good job, this, but it was like deep down, I was like, fuck, I'm gonna get laid, son. I'm gonna get laid, son. Come to find out, these American Pie movies and a lot of these movies about college, how you get laid in part, they were fucking paid for by colleges.
Yep.
College marketing departments. So colleges were paying money to these movies to have these American Pie movies made. So guys in the 90s and the 2000s would like, holy shit, that's where you get laid, bro. This is where
you're selling a dream.
You're selling a dream.
I have worked, and I hate to throw these guys under the bus because I wish I could come up with a program to help out like Indian guys and like Asian guys. And I mean by Asian, I mean like Southeast Asian kind of guys.
Okay.
And Japan's one thing, but I mean like guys who, especially Indian guys who come over to the United States to learn like coding, like they're in Silicon Valley and they are making money hand over fist. And then suddenly they think that now I've got the degree, now I've got all this shit ton of money. Where's Pamela Anderson? How come she's not like banging on they want that big tit blonde girl because they think that if they get the money, they get the girl, right? It's like, what is it? Like Scarface. First you get the money, then you get the power, then you get the girl, right?
You get the respect or whatever.
Then you get the respect. Yeah, it's like, that worked in 1982, okay? Right. It's all about perception right now, and it doesn't matter how much money you make as a coder because the chick that you want to bang is probably making way more money than you are, even as a coder. So I think that's, you have to remember that when you're watching, say, Fresh and Fit, and people go, these are delusional women. They'll put it in every title of every freaking video, right? Delusional woman thinks this, instantly regrets it, right? Like that kind of shit. Okay, but you got to remember that the girl who's thinking this, the reason why she's delusional is because of everything we've mentioned on this show thus far today.
Right.
Which is the situation where the old order conventional, like sexual mating strategies conflict with modern technology, but conflict with which influenced how our society is right now. We can very easily market to women with FOMO and you only live once, girl, and go get the bag, and you got to have yours, and you got this whole marketing juggernaut. It's churn marketing is really what it is. It keeps them wrapped up in it with these astronomically high expectations, and as such, average women don't want to get with average men.
Invest into Chewies, you guys.
Yeah. Well, and I'm not trying to like bring everybody down, but I'm just saying that like you have to be realistic about the game that you're in right now, because if you want to play it well, you've got, assuming you want to at all, because the guys who are sitting on the couch eating Cheetos right now, they don't want to play. They're not players.
It's not worth the squeeze.
It's not worth the squeeze. And even if they're not MGTOW or Black Pill or Doomers or whatever, like stereotypically, they've chosen the same path.
Right.
Of non-action,
and even and dude, and I've said this a lot of times. I do have respect for the Black Pillars. They're very intelligent guys.
And by the way, that's not a flame. That's not a cut. I understand. I completely understand the pragmatism of doing that. I get it. I think it's a bad prescription.
Yes,
but I completely understand your choice in doing so.
I respect your. Well, I don't know if I respect it.
I respect it, but like I think it's the wrong prescription.
Right.
But you followed the same diagnosis. You just said, you know what? Fuck it, I'm just gonna eat Cheetos.
Maybe the real distinction is like we're crazy enough to keep trying, but like we're willing to keep trying, because it's like
people look at us and they go, well, look at you guys, you make a shit ton of money. Look at just Justin Waller makes more than I do. He's taller than better looking than me too. It's like, but like I'm still in the game. I might not be playing the same level as Justin.
Right. But we all focused on different lanes and like I focus on the money side, but like at the detriment of my health. For a long time, and now I'm trying to get my health.
Man. No days off.
No days off.
No, literally, no. We literally don't get any days off. No. That's not a flex. That's a statement of fact.
I got 3 hours of sleep. I got 3 streams today. I got a flight to Miami.
I still got another thing I got to do today too. Just to put an end to all of this real quick. Sure. This is part 1. We'll do a part 2 when we can get if I can get George Gammon in here, that would be really great. If I can get Gammon and I can get Aaron and the rest of us and have this conversation again, I think it would be really productive. That's what we're trying to do, is have a productive conversation, because you're not getting it from these sons of bitches.
Right.
You're not getting it because they want to tiptoe around the gorilla in the room, which is the fact that women don't want to get with guys who don't have that kind of money, and men have just simply said, fuck it, I'm out.
Right.
I don't care.
And just to bring it to that earlier point where you tell me about some of these crypto guys,
that Megyn Kelly is the real reason.
but you are right. Like, just because you make a lot of money does not mean that you're safe now. I made a ton of money.
Insurance. If anything, it's bait.
You go to these now. The PulseCon was very different because that is a very red pilled. I mean, you were when you went there, people were like, Ferrolo.
Yeah, I was actually done. I was like, Wow, I feel like visiting royalty. I was like, I can't believe it.
And we're going to another I would say not a Pulse but it's like a Hex conference down there in Miami as well as we're going.
Yeah, when is that
Miami.
going to be? So let's do announcements here.
What's called May 18th to the 21st.
Cool. Yeah, I will, and that coincides with the Bitcoin.
Yeah, we're going to be visiting the Bitcoin and then going to a private event afterwards and stuff like that. So we're going to get the tickets ready. So
right, I already booked my flight. I already booked my hotel. We will also be there with Mike Sartain. Mike Sartain also has Babes in Toyland. So
shout out to Mike.
He's going to be sourcing girls for our show on Fresh and Fit when we're on there too. So that's already set. And then we will also be on Adam Sosnick's show. We got invited to that, if you can believe that. But I'll be going back to do me and Mike will be on that show.
Sosnick's a cool dude. Like he's a cool dude. He's been nice.
I don't like who he's married to, but it's okay.
I didn't even know.
No, I mean like figuratively speaking.
Okay.
No, but we're gonna be at the Pulse event. Is it the Hex Pulse event?
The Hex Pulse. We're basically Bitcoin Miami. It's basically the second biggest conference in the world when it comes to like crypto.
Yeah, and it's a big party too.
Big party.
And by the way, I have every expectation that Hotep Jesus will be there again because that's how I found out about it last year was through Hotep. So he'll probably be there as well. And so we'll be there with Myron and Fresh. We'll be out there. We'll at least do one show with Adam. Babes in Toyland is going on out there. We're going to do we'll be making the rounds at the crypto conferences and certainly the Bitcoin thing.
Right.
I'm also going to be, I'm working it out right now. I'm going to do a photo shoot with Mike Tang again because I always used to do one a year. And I'm going to bring Mike Sartain with me on this one too.
Nice.
So we're going to go do that. And then I'm going to have my first of the 2 annual deep sea fishing trips that I do. So you are invited to that if you'd like to come. And go,
for sure, let me know.
We'll probably go hit like King Mac or get some Dorado or something.
Guess where I'm at tomorrow?
Where are you going tomorrow?
I will be tomorrow on Fresh and Fit.
My goodness. Why would you be there?
Well, we are doing the first rollout for the crypto mindset course we have done in 6 months.
Of which I'm an affiliate.
But no,
I don't have a link yet, but it's coming.
But basically, we are the largest crypto. So I co-owned the largest cryptocurrency course in the world. Factually, like we've onboarded. I'm very happy to say we've onboarded over 12,000 red pill men into the crypto space,
myself,
including yourself and stuff. And I'm really happy to say the last time we have done this, we were on Fresh and Fit last November at the fucking low of Bitcoin.
Yeah, and the low of Ethereum.
Yep.
At the same time, we launched the Red Pill Lions NFT, and we're still alive. The mint closed finally.
The mint closed at 9% of Ethereum. Today we're well over 15% of Ethereum.
Actually,
everyone's in
come
profit.
To think of it, that was actually pretty brilliant of us to do that because now those NFT Lions are just shooting up with the price of Ethereum.
You always want to launch products in a down market. Be counterintuitive. It's like always if you want to know how to be rich, get into shit when no one's thinking about it. Boom. Easy, you make a ton of money. But let me tell you this. All our students who got into the crypto mindset course in November of last year are up about somewhere between 2 to 5 times on average on their principal. So if they had $10,000 invested, they're up somewhere between $20,000 to $50,000-$60,000 of profit right now.
Excellent. Yeah.
Every single one of them. I mean, it's just.
This is my you're my crypto advisor. You're my financial advisor, really. Yeah.
But the reason that we've done so well in the space is because pretty much we can give people practical, usable advice. There's some people, there's some really smart guys that are really good at charts and they're really good at, but they're really bad at like helping someone like buy. It's like we have the simple jack, buy this coin, let's wait. Versus you have to get into the chart here, sell here. Then when it crashes back down, buy. Like it's more buy hold strategies. Very like to get people into the space. Once they get a little more advanced, they can do all the fancy stuff. But that's the tough part. That's why most people in crypto can't really onboard is because they're doing like.
It might be time to talk to Robert Kiyosaki again. See if we can get a panel show.
Let's do it, man. Shout out to. I mean, he already said we have the best course in the world.
Robert has been hitting me up to come to Vegas since we started this whole clusterfuck. This wonderful clusterfuck, I should say. But we've been doing pretty good.
Yeah. Can I just say one more thing?
Yeah,
So this is like sometimes we get into coins that seem like total bullshit, and they are. And they are. No, for real. They're like I'll say 99% of coins are dead in 3 years. But you can make a ton of money being in them, and just when you're in tons of profit, leave. That's it. And I think people get very married to something to some people don't like the coin hex, right? But if for some reason I saw the coin hex was about to die.
I love the coin hex.
I love the coin hex too. But let's just say if I fucking knew that hex was gonna die, I'd tell everyone, yo, I'm getting out of it. Let's get on to the next one.
Drop now.
But I don't think so. But that's the whole thing is just having like it's spinning plates. spinning plates. I say those exchanges and coins. We have multiple coins in the portfolio. We're not all in on one coin because what if that coin dies, you're fucked.
Yeah.
That's the whole thing. Don't get married. I mean, don't marry these hoes.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
it could be your main bitch, but it's like
well, you can't get sentimental about shit too. It's
right.
Like, it's like you put me into Hedron too, and I had to sort of move things around. I guess that's my call.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So let's just wrap up here. Again, this is part 1.
Yeah.
We'll be doing a part 2 of this at some future date. Probably once we get back from maybe even into May. Next week we have Gary, the numbers guy, in this studio on the 26th. It will take place at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern time. So that debate is, such as it is going to take place in the other studio, not this studio, but this Studio A.
Studio A.
And it'll be myself, Gary, the numbers guy, Gary Ginsberg, and Mike Sartain, who is really the channel. I'm just sitting between. I'm facilitating it. It's going to be these two. So it'll be a fun conversation. If nothing else, it'll be red meat entertainment for you. No doubt.
I love that someone said, "Don't marry these hoes." If you learn nothing about the show,
yeah, there you go.
There you go.
And so that'll be the 26th, the 27th. We will have Access Vegas. We've got I have Tugs and X-Ray Girl from Nerdrotic that are coming in here. Chrissy Mayer is also going to be here. The guys from Nerdrotic will be here on that Friday as well, doing their panel. They're doing Friday Night Tights. It's a possibility I might be able to get on that. We'll see. And then we got a lot of things going. Like next week is very busy. We're also going to have Trey Little is going to be. He's a rapper from Detroit. Yep. He'll be in town. We're going to show him a good time, and he's going to be our guest on Access, our male guest on Access Vegas.
Was he on with the Savos?
No, he hasn't been on with Savos, but he's a good friend of mine on Instagram. If you follow me on Instagram, you probably have seen me repost his stuff quite often. But he's going to be in Vegas. Yeah. We're gonna do some content, have a good time, and then he's going to be on Access.
Oh, one last thing! Shout out to the Savos. We're making a movie.
Yeah,
we just ended up having somebody make an entire news article about like us making a movie and stuff. So me and Charlie have funded Savos slasher flick. We're making this. So this is kind of what we've been planning. Like the whole having the headquarters here in Vegas. Another thing is having a media arm. We're building out sort of like a red pill movie industry.
We're actually doing it, unlike other places.
We're actually doing it. Yeah. And eventually, one of my not much master plan, but like I want to tell you guys, I want to put this into existence. Is I'm actually trying to fund and make an actual reel with Rolo behind it and a bunch of the guys in the red pill. Real red pill documentary. Not that. What was that? This dumb film named himself The Red Pill. For some dumb reason.
Yeah. No. I mean, as far as a documentary, like something that's legit.
Because if we don't write our own history, they'll write it for us.
Yeah, if we don't do it, somebody else is going to.
And this is just like because I've seen this little media manipulation even in the crypto space, and it's freaking me out. And I just feel like if we don't put our own material,
the outline's
out
already done, man. I have been planning this since 2017. So, and in fact, I think we're even in a different state right now. So I think that would be a really good thing. We also have we're in talks about actually doing our own line of liquor now too. So I'm going to go out and say it right now. We're looking into. By the way, the same weekend next weekend is the White Label Conference that's here in Vegas. So I'm looking at suppliers for that. We'll have more. I kind of wanted to make an official announcement of that we are actually doing this. Because I want people to understand that we do a lot of different things here. So like we're putting movie stuff out. We want to do a documentary. We're going to. I mean, we do things with our money. We don't just sit on it like fucking Scrooge McDuck and go, "Yeah, this got all my money." Right?
We're gonna have a movie. We're gonna have movie premieres in Las Vegas, L.A., New York, and Miami. Yeah, for this movie and stuff like that. I think here at the Palms actually as well and stuff. So I mean, we're doing big things.
We do things. Yeah, we do things with our money.
But we're funding money back into the red pill community to help it out. And
that was the whole point.
Yeah.
All right, guys. All right. Well, thanks for watching today. I will be back on my regular show on Sunday. Rule Zero is hosted, I believe, by Paul this week. But go check my Twitter if you want to know about Rule Zero, which will be on Saturday at 11:30 a.m. Eastern Time. Other than that, I will see you guys. Thanks for doing a show with me. It's great. No problem, man. It's been a while.
Shout out to Iron Maiden.
Yeah.
Cool. Dude, cool.